Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Our show today and every day brought to you by our friends over at Big Willie's, Utah's sports bar at 1717 South Main. They've got food specials, drink specials, cold beers on draft, soft drinks if you don't imbibe, you're a teetotaler like me, pool tables, and TVs for all of your sports consumption. Stop by at 1717 South Main. Tell them OC sent you. They're going to hook you up. We're lucky enough today to be joined right off the top of the show right now by Alex Jensen, head coach, Utah men's basketball. Undefeated at 3-0 so far on the season. Coach Jensen, welcome again to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Glad to start off the top with you and dive in a little bit to what has been so far a successful start to your season. I'll probably ask you this question every time in some form when we talk, but it's only been 3 games. But what do you know through 3 games about your team that you didn't know before you had played live competition?
Great question. And my answer will probably change every time I get asked. But no, I think with having a whole new staff and pretty much almost a whole new roster, like it takes time. Continuity is a great thing to have, but I think just guys get more comfortable playing with each other, and I think the thing that I have a better feel for is the roles that our guys will have on our team, and the role definition that they have and with each other.
How much will those roles evolve, do you think, from now conference play? Injuries will come into play at some point for yourself and for other teams and things like that. I imagine that it's best to get some level of continuity, but this is a living, breathing organism, your roster. So how much do you anticipate those roles kind of evolving and changing as the season progresses?
They already have. You mentioned injuries. We lost Babacar Faye, one of our better players, before the season started for the year. So then all of a sudden those roles changed. And then, James Okonkwo, another fifth-year senior big man that we have, he had to sit out the first 3 games. So now he'll be back the next game. So the roles will evolve. So I guess you just try to build a foundation of, regardless of who we have on the court, it's kind of more of like, I guess you could call it an identity of the team. Things that don't change no matter who's playing or who you're playing with.
We have not had an opportunity to speak to you since the overtime game, a win against Weber State, and there's positives and negatives when you go into overtime. There's positives and negatives when you get a scare from a team that you should outmatch physically and things like that. What was the conversation like with your squad after a really tough one against the Wildcats, an in-state opponent?
You know what? I first and foremost, like we didn't stop, and we didn't stop playing. We didn't give up. Found a way to win, and I give Eric and Coach Duft and Weber State a lot of credit because I warned our guys this was going to be a big game for them, and I think it was a learning process. Like I said, very fortunate to win, but there's a lot of lessons. Like I think the biggest one is the season's short, the game is short, and every possession matters, and you can't the time's too valuable to get better as a team, and just and again, the message I'm trying to send to our guys is it's not about you individually, it's about the team. And you might have a game where you score a lot of points, and then the next game at that night, that might not be what we need from you. So, disappointing at times, but a lot of things to learn of, and fortunate enough to beat Weber at home in overtime.
You came back and you kind of put it on Holy Cross, which, of course, is expected. They're not on the same level as you are. But what was the highlight or the best thing you saw when you evaluated the film of that game from your squad? 87-69 was the final there, as you know.
I think it was probably our best game that we put together, and I think the good thing was I think they got it to 9, We had, just like a young team or a new team, like we got up by 12 or 15 sometimes, and then we took some early bad shots. But I think we we didn't let them back into the game, and kind of those things I mentioned, we did a good, and you know what? That was our best rebounding game. Regardless of the opponent, we from the get-go, we won the rebounding battle. So, no, that was encouraging because the first two games we came in at halftime were San Jose State and Weber State had both killed us on the boards. So that was a big emphasis. And like Seydou Traore did a good job, or he ended, I think, with 8 or 9 rebounds. And they took it to heart. And that was really good.
I was going to ask you about rebounding because, when a lot of people think of Alex Jensen, the player, they think of like the sort of effort, the nitty gritty, like I'm willing to do some of the stuff that we consider to be kind of want to type plays. And I imagine that's something that you hope will permeate the culture of Utah basketball. And every basketball coach we talk to, it's like you could control your effort on rebounding. Yes, there's technique to it, but a lot of times rebounds are kind of an effort and a want to sort of proposition. How do you instill that? How do you practice that? Because, it's one of the, I guess, the harder to pin down things for the average basketball fan.
Oh, yeah. No, because rebounding, you're exactly right. Rebounding, it's something anybody can do. And there's not necessarily a technique to it. It's just a mindset that I'm going to rebound every time. And I tell my guys, anybody can do that, regardless of, you might not get as many if you're smaller or can't jump very high, but, we don't necessarily have any rebounding drills. We just try to emphasize it in everything we do. And, but you're right. Like rebounding is one of those things, we'll have games where we won't have the size advantage, but rebounding is it's just a will of wanting to do it and making it a priority every time. So, in which we've gotten better at and did our best job, on Saturday against Holy Cross, and that's going to be our upcoming game. That's going to be more difficult because the team's going to be a bit bigger and stronger in Sam Houston State. So, again, making that a habit and putting emphasis on it in everything we do.
Vernon Utes head basketball coach Alex Jensen is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show to start off the show. As you mentioned, it's Sam Houston, and this whole thing is kind of growing and progressing, and we're learning what you've got on your roster. What do you anticipate the role of the three-point shot to be in your offense this year? We've seen some ups and downs already through 3 games, and obviously the three has become such a massive thing in the game of basketball at every level. You got to have shooters. So what role is the three-point shooting going to play in your offense?
I think it'll have a huge part. I think it's helping our guys discern. There's a difference between hunting a shot and falling into a shot through what we run offensively, whether it's just spacing or a play. I want our guys to be, confident, like when they shoot it. I think that's the most important thing in shooting is believing that you can make it. But, but discerning the difference between, a no-pass possession with a 3 off the dribble as opposed to an assisted catch-and-shoot 3, which is better at any level of basketball. And, I tell our guys that so I think we have a handful, we have a lot of capable shooters. And, and I go back to Seydou Traore. He was 5 for 7 the first game from 3 against San Jose State. Then he was 0 for 7 against Weber. And it can't be – I think that goes just learning the difference between hunting those shots and falling into them. And I tell our guys all the time, you might get 5 one game, you might get 1 game, depending on the scout. You just got to be ready to take it. And again, analytics are a big part of basketball. And I think there'll be games and teams we play where we'll have more threes than when we won't. But I think the threes have to be generated by other things, if that makes sense. Not to get too much into the weeds with it.
We don't mind getting into the weeds, Coach. We don't have a lot of opportunity to pick a brain like yours. So if you want to get into the weeds anytime on any answer, feel free to. This one is probably not one you get too far in the weeds with. But, look, attendance matters in college basketball. Atmosphere matters in college basketball, and it's something that, when you were playing in the glory days, was never in question at the Huntsman Center. And in recent years, it's fallen off a little bit, but attendance is up from last year. The Muss is engaged through the early part of this season, and I think that's a testament to the optimism surrounding your roster and your arrival individually. How is that sitting with you right now, knowing that people are there watching to see what you're doing?
Well, no, it's great. It's great, and I think the cure for attendance and all that stuff is you win. I can remember when I was a freshman in '94, and McBride in football. They had a hard time filling it now, but it's great to watch what Kyle and his, the people that were before him and with him have done. Now I don't know how many saw it in a row, but it's a great atmosphere, and it's awesome. And and we've done the Muss has been great. I think we had 3 times as many Muss members at our home opener than they did a year previously, and I think winning and then also having the connection with the community, the students, the boosters, the donors, and everything, letting them get to know us. We've done a docu-series that's on YouTube where, because it's all, in college sports, fans like to cheer for a guy for a couple years. And just as a coach, that was the fun part about college was you get a kid, he was young, and you get him for a couple years. You watch him grow, and your team becomes better. And I think just overall with camps, community outreaches and stuff, and I think just bridging that gap and having that connection with everybody.
Well, I'm campaigning aggressively on the air that we get an Alex Jensen throwback uniform night on the floor and in the Muss, where everyone wears the baggy jerseys, the baggy T-shirt, the baggy shorts, and we take it back to the glory days.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. We'll do anything to get them to get fans in there.
All right, I have to ask you this question because there are very few people that match up in the Venn diagram, having NBA and specifically G League experience, and then also now are head coaches in college basketball and are ultimately responsible for recruiting and filling out rosters. It's becoming a strange trend, in my opinion, that G League players are becoming eligible to return to college basketball if they're within a 5-year window of high school graduation and they have not actually signed a real NBA contract. So they're going from being pro players in the G League to ostensibly amateur players, although we all know that college sports are pro sports, at least at the highest level now. I wanted your opinion on this. Having coached in the G League and now being the head coach for your alma mater, what do you think of G League guys coming back to college?
Probably shouldn't give my opinion, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, I try not to get it's interesting, but I think there's a lot of gray area right now, and I think it's evolving. But I think that's kind of just from when I played and coached in college, that seemed like that was the opposite of what college basketball was about. But that's changed. But no, it doesn't. And again, every specific situation is different, but yeah, I think common sense would kind of lead you to think that doesn't make much sense.
What is the level?
Essentially, turn professional, then come back. But
yeah, I mean that's kind of where I net out on it, but I've never been as close to these things as you have. What is the level of a G League only player versus a big time Division I? Power 4 conference type player? Obviously it's individual based on, talent, skill, size, all those things. But in general, what is the level of your G League player can't quite make it to that NBA roster compared to a college player?
It's interesting because because the NBA itself is the difference is it's just everybody's so much bigger, longer, faster, right? Just physically different. In the D League, they always say you got to have a skill to fit on a team. Like the skill could be rebounding, we talked about earlier. everybody needs a true point guard. There's not a lot of true point guards left. It's interesting because when I was in the D League before the G League, there wasn't as many teams now, and not every NBA team, I think, approaches the G League situation the best the best possible way. But I think it's like I try to tell our guys, like if you want to play professionally anywhere, you have to have a skill. You got to be able to fit in with four other guys. Like if your dream's the NBA, most NBA teams, they don't need a guy that's going to shoot 20 times a game, right? They're going to need somebody that can play along an all-star or a max level player that can defend and do a lot of the little things. But I think the lines are kind of blurred between, a G League level player and a high major college player, because I think it's kind of been watered down some, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think the top players in the G League are they're legitimate borderline NBA players who, and here's another thing: the games are. I've learned a lot. The game's so much different. The rules are different. There's guys that skill sets or their game fits college better than it doesn't translate to the pros, right? You see it every year in the draft, but it's hard to say. I think that's pretty equal, but it's kind of like a, player by player. And that's what people at front offices in the NBA get paid the money to make the right choice on which kid can make that transition.
All right, before I let you go, and I don't want to belabor this point too much, but do you think that most college coaches kind of see it the way that you see it, or is this one of those trends where, like, there was a time when in basketball and football we were like, hey, let's not pay these guys. This is like we're opening a can of worms here, and now everyone's just accepted it as a reality. Is this something we're all just going to have to get used to?
Yeah, I think it's going to get used to. I think, the thing I would say, and I think you hear a lot of veteran coaches say, like there's more questions than answers now. Like it'd be nice to put a few more guardrails in, and because what's legal, what's not, what's accepted, what's not. Like one player playing in the D League can come back and have 4 years of eligibility, another one can have 1 or 2 years. Like just to kind of make it uniform across. But yeah, I think the money's here to stay. We've got to get used to it. But I think there's a path forward. But we just need some more rules and regulations around it, which might take longer than any of us would probably like or hope.
Well, Coach, can't tell you how much I appreciate you giving us some time. I know you're incredibly busy. Congrats on the hot start, and let's stay hot against Sam Houston coming up on, what's that, Saturday.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Anytime.
Alex Jensen, head coach of your running Utes. It'll be Sam Houston, 7 p.m. tip. That'll be on ESPN Plus, or better yet, up at the Huntsman Center live. If you want to hear more of Alex Jensen, the Coach's Show is tonight right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM at 6 o'clock. Really appreciate Coach giving us a few minutes right in the thick of his schedule. And look, I asked that question about G League players coming back to college basketball. Abdullah Ahmed, get used to that name. BYU just signed a guy, just got a commitment from a guy who has been in the G League. Alex Jensen, I'll tell you something. We are not going to clip that, hey, this doesn't make a lot of sense, and replay it over and over and over again, because 2, 3, 5 years from now, Alex Jensen is probably going to have to be recruiting a guy like this every now and again as well. It's such a strange thing in college basketball. Anyway, big thanks to Coach for joining us right off the top. Beth Lanier, the head volleyball coach, is also going to join us. When's that happening, James? 10 minutes from now? Oh, man. I am going to have a hard time staying on clock today. Spoiler alert. Beth Lanier in about 10 minutes. We've got Trevor Riley set up to come in or to join us on the phones, one of the two. And then Between the Pipes with Adrian Denny as the Utah Mammoth. They've gone a little bit cold, ladies and gentlemen. The Utah Mammoth looking to get back to their winning ways. Hopefully they can make it happen tonight on home ice against the Buffalo Sabres. We'll get to all of that on the show. And, of course, most of you were probably tuning in, hearing me, or getting ready to hear me rant about the college football playoff rankings. I will say what I said last week. The committee has sent a message clearly and again that they like the Big 12 football conference, at least enough that you should have a glimmer of hope. You should have a spark of wish and optimism that Utah football, if they take care of business, if they go and they beat Baylor and then they beat Kansas State, who just yesterday they lost their leading tackler for the rest of the year. Kansas State's best defensive player is out for the rest of the year. So that's going to be tough for them to replace. Then if you can finish out strong against Kansas, and if you can do so in dominant fashion, maybe, just maybe. Now, there has to be some things that happen in front of you, but let's be realistic here. The most likely scenario is that some things are going to happen in front of you. The most recent college football playoff rankings that were revealed last night, that were released last night, after our show was long done, of course, has BYU down at 12, right ahead of Utah, and I think that's where the Cougs belong because they did win the head-to-head, and they're only a one-loss team so far this year. The committee elevated Texas Tech to 6, and I think that is actually important because Oregon won, Ole Miss won, and still Texas Tech was able to leapfrog. Now, Notre Dame has a really tough out this weekend with Pitt. I think Notre Dame should win that game, which you probably, if you're hoping for an at-large type situation for the University of Utah to be a possibility, you probably want to root for the Pitt Panthers. That would clear things up a little bit.
That's in Pittsburgh, by the way, so that makes it a little bit harder. But I'm with you. I would expect an Irish win in that one. This is definitely the week, if you're a Utes fan or a BYU fan, to be rooting for the Panthers in that game. Also, I mean, you're probably going to get to this, but Oklahoma has a tough game this week.
Oklahoma's got a crazy tough game this week. Texas has a tough game this week.
Is Texas, Georgia this week?
Texas has, or is that, they have a bye this week? Texas, Georgia, yeah. So Texas is, this week is Saturday. And then they've got Arkansas, and then they've got Texas A&M. The Longhorns are either going to be, at the end of this year, they're either going to be the number 6 ranked team in the country, or they're going to be completely out of the conversation.
They're going to be close. They might be closer to 20 than they are to 10 by the end of the season.
If they lose to Georgia and to Texas A&M, they're going to be the 22nd ranked team, and you don't have to worry about Texas. Yeah. And that's what you should be rooting for. That's what you want. If you are a BYU fan driving around right now, you are now anti-Sark. You used to love him, now you hate him. You want Steve Sarkisian to be terrible the rest of the way.
And if you're a Utah fan, you still hate Sark.
If you're a Utah fan, you want to, it's a weird place to be, but you're like, you know who I love right now? I love Texas A&M. I love Alabama. I love Georgia. I love Texas Tech to win out. You're rooting for all of these like big brands that are kind of the antithesis of your little engine that could. We've carved our own way. We've made ourselves into a nationally respected program in modern football through the sweat of our brow and the blood, sweat, and tears of all of these young men. Like Alabama, Texas A&M, Georgia, Ohio State, these silver spoon teams, you have to be fans of them right now.
Especially Indiana, the Buckeyes, of course.
Indiana is they're so far ahead, and they've got Wisconsin and Purdue. Indiana's going to finish undefeated, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to finish the regular season undefeated at 12-0.
You just jinxed it.
Indiana, the Hoosiers.
By the way, not this week, but in 2 weeks, Oregon plays USC. So talk about another weird one, rooting for the Trojans.
You got to root for USC.
So, but like, I think that the schedule for the teams pretty immediately ahead of Utah and BYU, because both teams need to be thinking about a way to get in as an at-large, right? Not just Utah. The schedule for the teams ahead, you got Oregon plays USC. We talked about Texas's schedule. Oklahoma, Alabama this week. Pitt, Notre Dame this week. it sets up pretty well. Like, you got to be feeling pretty optimistic. Now, of course, you got your first and foremost, your favorite team's got to take care of business. They got to finish this season unbeaten the last 2 or 3 games, depending on which team. But there's some probable, if not very likely, losses on the teams ahead of you schedule. And in the case of Oklahoma and Texas, you probably only need one more loss from both of those guys, because I don't think you can put 3-loss teams ahead of the 2-loss teams.
It's hard to anticipate a 3-loss, even SEC team, even big brand team, if Utah finishes out undefeated. And by the way, there's the prospect of Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has a resume builder left on, like, if Tennessee, the final game of the season for Vanderbilt on the road, ends up being a win for the Commodores,
they could possibly leapfrog.
I don't know that they would leapfrog, but it's a possibility, right? And you certainly, if you're Vanderbilt and you finish with 2 losses, and Oklahoma and or Texas has 3 losses, like, you can't, the committee and the rest of the SEC is not going to be like, what Vanderbilt has done this year doesn't matter because we want Texas and Oklahoma in. They're going to say, no, good job, Vandy. You've just given the SEC another team, another brand. That's Vanderbilt right now is on the precipice of being what, like a baby Oregon, a baby who's a new blood, not a blue blood, but a new blood. Vanderbilt, we're watching it in real time. We're watching this thing where there was a year, I think it was the Joey Harrington year, where Oregon inserted itself into the national consciousness and has not left since. Even when they've had kind of down years, they have not left the conversation since. But we watched that happen in real time. We remember when it happened for Oregon, and Vandy has that opportunity right now. They have that opportunity this year. There's actually not that many. You could say Utah was one of those teams. The Fiesta Bowl year was probably the year that the rest of the country was finally like, Utah. And then, to be honest, Utah probably did exit the national consciousness a couple of times in the early Pac-12 years and surged back into it, and now is a perennial top 25 team with rare exception, and is talked about in the know, in the circles that matter, as one of those teams. BYU was the Lavelle Edwards years, put BYU into the national consciousness. It doesn't happen as often as you think, where a program has this upward mobility, has this moment, has this inflection point where we actually get to say, oh, wait a second, they're becoming something right now. We saw it happen with Boise State, but they've never had the conference affiliation. They've never had the market size. They never had the television sets in order to stay really in that spot. Vanderbilt has that potential. Vanderbilt, the former punchline of the SEC, is right now 3 wins away from being permanently in the national spotlight, because the SEC money, once you have success, it's going to breed more success for you. That is bananas. We remember a lot of times when teams have fallen out, but you can only come up with a few examples of when people have kind of pulled up. They've showed up wearing a funny outfit, and they pulled out that chair at the big boy table, and they're like, I'm sitting here now. You're like, wait, who are you? Why is your mascot the Commodores? You're not exactly a nautical type city. Why is Nashville, Tennessee a Commodore mascot? And you got to, let me explain it to you. I'm now here. Hey, what is a ute? Remember when that happened? You pulled your chair out and you sidled up to the table and you bellied up and you said, I'm here now, guys. And the Trojans and the Nittany Lions and the Ohio State Buckeyes were like, hey, the hell is a ute? Is that my cousin Vinny? What is that? What's a ute? And you got to be like, yeah, this is what we are. This is who we are. This is what our brand is. Vanderbilt is this close. And unfortunately, that being this close could come at the expense of Utah and or BYU. So right now, you have to, as a fan of any of the schools in Utah that have an opportunity as an at-large or potential runner-up or even a conference champion in the Big 12, you have to kind of like hate on the other teams that are more like you, and you have to root for these blue blood, big brand Oh, these guys are always in the – you have to root for USC? Wash that bad taste out of your mouth. Yuck. We'll get more into this as the show progresses. Sean O'Connell Show is brought to you today and every day by our friends over at Big Willie's at 1717 South Main. Take a quick one here. Utah head volleyball coach Beth Lanier joins us next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show continues here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We're going to try and track down Beth Lanier here. First attempt unsuccessful, but we'll keep trying. The college football playoff rankings are out again, and BYU 12, Utah 13. I think of minor importance, Cincinnati is also back in the rankings. They're number 25, adding a fourth Big 12 team to the top 25 in the college football rankings. That I say that matters because if Cincinnati can continue to do good things, their remaining schedule is Arizona, and Arizona is sneaky problematic, by the way. Brent Brennan is a good coach who had the growing pains of being a first-year head coach at the new spot last year, big roster turnover last year. Arizona is already bowl eligible, is already kind of like projecting above where people thought they were going to be. They were one of the teams, what it was like UCF, Arizona, and Houston that were sharing the bottom projections of the Big 12 Conference in the preseason. Houston and Arizona have really outperformed those. So Arizona's a tougher than you probably give it credit for out for Cincinnati. As we've talked about plenty, they've got BYU at home, second to last week of the season, and then they go on the road to TCU. Now, why does this matter for Utah? Well, if Cincinnati ends up beating Arizona, who is at least a winning team this year, if they end up finding a way to beat BYU, now we're talking about possibilities for a conference championship appearance for the University of Utah. And if they beat TCU on the road, now we're talking about Cincinnati sitting at anywhere from 18 to 22 in the college football playoff rankings. And that's a bigger win for the University of Utah. That's another resume builder. That's they demolished. They didn't just beat Cincinnati. They took Cincinnati out behind the woodshed and smacked them around. And then they let them go, and Cincinnati came out with tears streaming down its face. And then Utah said, actually, wait, you know what? I want to make sure you remember this, and grabbed them by their little Cincinnati Bearcat wrists and pulled them behind the woodshed again and then smacked them a few more times. So if that ends up being a top 25 team when it's all said and done, that's a much more impressive win for the University of Utah. Now, if you're looking at it from that lens, you're like, okay, I want Cincinnati to be successful. But Cincinnati has a much more important role to play in Utah's future with that BYU game. Can Cincinnati beat BYU? Big question. If you're a BYU fan, obviously you want the Cougs to go smack Cincinnati and then earn their way. That would effectively, I think that would eliminate the possibility of them being leapfrogged into the conference championship game, set up a rematch with Texas Tech, which I don't think is the best recipe for success for anyone right now. Texas Tech is playing crazy good football.
I think your only hope against Texas Tech is if Baron Morton, who's been playing a little hobbled and missed some games this year, goes down. Because they don't have Hammond.
Because Hammond is all the way down now.
And they don't really have a third string quarterback.
Which is why Baron Morton, far from being healthy, is playing. Because they're like, here's the thing. We spent way too much money on all of you guys. We have zero depth. I mean, rumor out there is that Will Hammond, the backup quarterback at Texas Tech, is making like $800,000 as the backup.
And we saw firsthand why.
100%.
Really talented guy. A lot of people, just like the Devin or Bird conversation we had here, I'm sure they had a conversation like Hammond, Hammond or Morton in Lubbock. He looks like he's worth that kind of money, but that clearly is hamstring them in their quarterback depth because they have nobody behind them. Like conversely, Utah at least has Isaac Wilson behind Bird and Devin.
I mean, not like
that's still a proven guy though. Like it's wild that a program like Texas Tech that spent that kind of money is like, yeah, we're good with. We only need 2 quarterbacks. Like, man, we probably need more than that. Right?
I mean, I'm sure
Just
they have.
case.
I'm sure Texas Tech. I'm actually positive of this. I'm very positive that Texas Tech has like a Luke Batari equivalent on their roster that we just don't know
Yeah,
about.
that's probably
Who's a guy
true.
who, like, turns out was an unbelievable high school player that's probably just a little too short or, has a sidearm release or something like that. And so they're like, I don't know, can we let this guy be our starter? I'm sure they got something like that. But Texas Tech's schedule also, it's UCF and West Virginia. I mean, Texas Tech they're going to moonwalk their way into this conference championship game, and then we will see how it plays out. But the committee has spoken again and said, Big 12 Conference, you've got 3 teams firmly in the mix, and one at least that we think is top 25 caliber, so will be considered a quality win if they can make that happen. That's more exciting for Utah and for BYU than it has any right to be. All right, Sean O'Connell Show here, and Beth Lanier, head volleyball coach from the University of Utah, is kind enough to join us right in the thick of a really, really tough scheduling stretch for Utah volleyball. Beth Lanier, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Sean. I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm doing okay. It's it's the end of getting towards the end of the season, and yeah, we're in the grind for sure.
And the grind right now includes TCU, who you already faced, Baylor, top 25 team, who you already faced, and up next on Friday, the in-state rival BYU, who is a top 25 team, and then after that, Kansas, who's right now the number 13 team in the country. So it is this is not exactly a friendly stretch of scheduling, but let's talk about what you learned against TCU and Baylor. What can your team improve on and try to get one against BYU?
Yeah, we played some good volleyball against those two teams, and then it's kind of been a little bit of our theme is with just a little bit of inconsistency this season. So we started off and played 2 great sets against TCU, lost the first one 26-24, won the second one, and then just weren't able to sustain just kind of, like I said, playing some really good volleyball. And then Baylor, again, playing pretty good. They actually had a jump server, a jump spin attacker, and she caused us a lot of trouble. Probably the best jump spin serve we've seen all season. And so we got in a little bit of trouble with our passing. That's been quite good for us all year. So, we hit at a very, very high rate. Our offensive efficiency has gone up significantly in the last few weeks. So we're really pleased with that. We've struggled at times holding our opponents' offense down, and so that's something that we're certainly going to have to do against a good BYU team.
Coach, when you talk about a jump spin server complicating some of the passing, break it down for me in more detail, if you don't mind, for an uninitiated volleyball expert.
I knew you were going to ask that question, Sean. From the end line, most people in the women's collegiate game serve a jump float serve. So, we're jumping from the end line and just trying to make that thing, the ball float, kind of like a knuckleball in baseball. But sometimes you face a jump spin server, and they are basically attacking the ball from the end line. They are jumping, they're tossing it, jumping it, and it looks just like an attack that you would see at the front line. So it's got, just a ton of spin on the ball, and it's attacked just from the end line. So this player from Baylor didn't miss, which is it's a higher risk serve. And yeah, it's coming at you a lot faster, a lot harder, and just a different serve completely.
Does the spin create movement in the air that affect your attack angle where you're receiving the ball, or is it more the contact with when you're trying to pass it, that spin creates like a different angle after the contact?
Yeah, I mean, the float serve, honestly, the jump float serve is statistically the best serve in the women's game, collegiately, just most effective of getting passers in trouble. But the spin serve, you just don't see it as often in the women's game. And so the issue with it is just coming, at about 50 miles an hour. I mean, it's just coming at a lot higher pace than a float serve. And, yeah, sometimes they curve, and so you have to figure out that angle. So I think you're right. You're spot on, Sean, with understanding this.
Okay, fascinating stuff because obviously I'm not a high level volleyball player, so I don't know what it actually.
You're learning.
I don't know what it looks or feels like. All right, so what is BYU best at? As you've come off of these two really tough matchups where your team did some good things, like for example, does BYU have one of these servers that's going to attack you a little bit differently than you're used to seeing?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. That I'm aware of right now. Again, my assistants are working on our scout intensely right now, and I've certainly been following and starting to look at it myself. But, the thing that BYU, they have two very good left side attackers. They have a phenomenal freshman, Suli Davis, who's really been a great addition to their team. And Claire Little. So they've got two big physical outside hitters. They've got a really nice middle blocker. Can't think of her first name is Kemavar. I think she's 6'5". And so they really nice right side who's a senior, fifth year, and she doesn't make a lot of errors. So they've got pieces, but they've also struggled at times this year. They've had injuries very similar to us, and so it's been a bit of a tough year. And interestingly, that we're playing each other 2 times in the next 2 weeks at the end of the season. Not exactly sure why the Big 12 did this schedule this way, but it makes for an intriguing end of our season. That's for sure to play our rival right at the end. So looking forward to it Friday night.
The rival twice in a couple of weeks, like you said. There's probably a lot of people like in the football world that were like, "Hey, I wish we could do that." You lose one, you want to get one back. How much does the rivalry aspect play in on the volleyball court? Like, I imagine there's probably some familiarity. Like, maybe one of your gals played with one of their gals in high school or on club volleyball or whatever. So, how much does the rivalry play in?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, we know their players very well. They know our players for sure. Some players, played together. Their head coach, Heather Olmstead, was my assistant for 5 years. So there's some familiarity there for sure. Volleyball is a massively momentum sport, and so I think playing at we get to play them here first, and we'll go down there. It's not easy to play at BYU's gym, and just as for them it's not easy to play here. The fans are into it. I love this match. It's always an exciting match. Last year we played great in it, and we're able to give our fans quite a awesome match to watch against BYU. But this year it's going to be tougher, and I think the fans and the volleyball community are going to show up in force. I hope so, because it's just exciting. I mean, 2 good volleyball programs going at it that are rivals. So, I mean, what more do you want in a Friday night volleyball match?
That'll be Friday, 7 p.m. at the Huntsman Center. It's Red Out Military Appreciation, so wear your red. Get out there to the Huntsman Center. Make a little bit of noise. Make it tough on BYU. Got an email with an announcement it's from this morning, a big signing for you and your program. What can you tell me about the signing of Sutton Harris, the outside hitter from Kansas?
Yeah, we're so excited about her. She's a 6-foot outside hitter, a very explosive athlete. She's a kid that I really think fans are going to fall in love with. She's a 3-sport athlete. She comes from a very, very small town in Kansas. She excels at different sports, and she's just a great athlete. And she has a lot of kills in the state of Kansas. Ranks right up there as one of the top kill getters in her career. So she's going to come in January. So she can graduate early, and I think we've discussed that maybe on the show. That's kind of a thing now, and it's really big benefit for high school kids to get here in the spring and have that training with us. So, we're excited to announce it, and we'll get her here in January.
Sutton appears to be one of these people that if you don't know her, you probably hate her because of the resume. It's one of those folks who's just good at everything. First team all league, all state, all tournament, all America, honorable mention. And on top of that, honor roll 9th to 12th grade valedictorian and first team academic honors from 2022 to 2025. So just for all of you underachievers out there, one of those people that you look at and say, how is that possible?
You know, she certainly, I believe, fits, you know, the standard for what we try to recruit to the Utah volleyball program. You know, great athlete, great student. Sorry, I'm sitting in the Huntsman Center. And just a high-quality person, high-quality family. And so, yeah, she fits, you know, what we look for in our recruits, and, yeah, couldn't be more excited about it.
Well, Coach, continue to bring in the talent, continue to coach them up. Good luck against BYU and then Kansas and the rest of the home stretch here. And we'll have you on again soon. I always really do appreciate you letting me pick your brain a little.
Yeah, you bet. We have BYU, we have Kansas next Wednesday, then we have Arizona on Friday, and that will be our last home match, and that'll be senior night. So I hope fans will also come out to that match and celebrate our great seniors. But yeah, Friday night, 7 o'clock, Huntsman Center. Come on out, Ute fans.
Wear your red and cheer on Beth Lanier and her squad. Thanks again, Coach.
Thanks, Sean.
Beth Lanier, head volleyball coach at the University of Utah. And, yes, they did just sign this big-time outside hitter talent from the state of Kansas. If you are an all-American caliber athlete and you're the valedictorian of your school, you are on a different plane. Congratulations to this young woman and her parents for making that happen. That's really something.
I'm just off topic from that. I'm just curious if you're now very confident to try the spinning jump serve that she's talking about after she broke it down for you.
I will say this, James Peterson. I'm not a high-level volleyball player, but Eastmont Middle School gave out awards at the end of the year when you were in 9th grade, okay? I was the volleyball MVP.
Okay.
Now, we played, I think, a 4-week unit of volleyball in gym class, and they were probably just like, he's not good at basketball. he wasn't the best.
We're not doing football skills competition.
He wasn't
here.
the best when we did the track and field thing. We didn't wrestle, but even if we did, I wouldn't have been number one because my best friend was an All-American wrestler. So they're probably just like, volleyball. Give him the volleyball award. So, you know.
So you're gonna add the spin. I'm waiting to hear what happens when you add the spinning jump serve to your repertoire.
But isn't that fascinating, right? When you hear a coach talking about like 80% plus of the women serve the ball the same way, and then you go up against one person who's just like, no, I am hammering this thing across the court at 50 plus miles an hour. It would be like, oh, whoa, okay, calm down, lady.
It's interesting. She compared and watching a little bit, not a ton of volleyball, but having seen a little bit of volleyball recently, it's true the regular jump serve is more the floating jump serve is more like the knuckleball, but it sounds like this spinning one is like the knuckleball in its rarity, right? Where it's like, oh, we have to completely adjust to something brand new here for this one player. Well, everyone else, it's more like something else, more like the 100-mile-an-hour fastball in baseball.
Crazy. Check them out Friday nights at the Huntsman Center. It'll be Utah volleyball hosting your reviled BYU Cougars team. It's 4 ranked squads in a row. They're smack dab in the middle of that one. And then a break. And when I say a break, it's just a match against an unranked squad. And then it's BYU again. So good luck to Beth Lanier and her squad. Hot Lunch is next. We'll make it a quick one on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Ooh, I love a good re-rank. I love rankings. I love even better, a re-rank because you have more information. ESPN put out the re-rank of the Power 4 quarterbacks after what they say are 2 months of the 2025 season. Feels like it's been longer than 2 months, but 2+ months.
It wasn't it?
It's November 12th.
Yeah. Isn't it 3 months? We started. Well, no, never mind.
It's like 2 months in a week.
Never mind.
We're both wrong here.
I got my numbers on the months wrong there. Yeah.
All right, hot lunch and a re-rank of the quarterbacks. James Peterson's very excited to report that Julian Sayin comes in number 1, the Ohio State quarterback.
I mean, obviously.
He started as ranked number 11, and now he's number 1.
I mean, Arch Manning, I'm sure, was number 1 in the first
2,491 pass yards, 56 rushing yards, 24 total TDs. Haynes King, Georgia Tech, number 2.
Really?
He was number 29 in the original rank. He's got 1,888 passing yards, 787 rushing yards, and 23 total touchdowns.
Overrated.
Just
kidding. He's had a great year.
The eventual Heisman Trophy winner, Fernando Mendoza, is number 3.
Hold on. Julian's saying, come on. No, Mendoza's probably winning that.
He's had that Heisman moment with the comeback.
Oh, my gosh. The toe tap against Penn State.
One of the best catches you're ever going to see. It looked like we didn't do a good job talking about this on Monday because first of all, you probably should not have been in the situation where you needed a 2-minute drive to come back and win to stay undefeated. But Fernando Mendoza, and more importantly, the young man who pulled off the toe tap, it was even in slow motion, even in like freeze frame. Oh, not going to get the foot down, 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 and then gets both feet down somehow, inexplicably, impossibly, just a little teet-teet.
Little twinkle toes at the end there. And the thing that made my jaw drop even more is if you only notice this when you watch it in super slow motion when they're during the review, but he makes sure he secures the catch with his hands, right? And then you can see him look down right before he taps the first foot down. And you watch that in real time. That happened in less than a second, it seemed like, but he was able to secure the catch, look down to make sure he had room to get one of his feet down, and then somehow he got both. It was incredible.
Just unbelievable body control and situational and field awareness. Truly a remarkable play. That's Omar Cooper Jr., by the way.
And somehow, Omar Cooper Jr. is in Ace Bailey's former agent. Anyway, former manager. Probably not related. But somehow that's Fernando Mendoza's Heisman moment when
the best play was made by the receiver. It
was the receiver.
But it's why being a quarterback is such a wonderful thing, right? Because when somebody else makes a phenomenal play, you get the credit for it.
You get the credit. Well,
but Mendoza,
his moment might have been the drive, right?
He's been ridiculous. Mendoza, he deserves to be in New York whether he wins it or not. Diego Pavia is number 4 on this list. Jade Mayava from USC, the former UNLV guy, he is number 5 on the list. You get down to number 9, and that's where the first Big 12 quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, makes his appearance. And by the way, Brendan Sorsby was number 6 before. He is number 9 today because Utah knocked him out of that number 6 position. He played against this Utah defense like a man scared, unaware, disoriented. Brendan Sorsby had his worst game of the last 2 seasons against the University of Utah. Credit the defense for forcing that. It was an absolutely garbage day for Brendan Sorsby. He does have 29 total touchdowns on the year. That keeps him in consideration here in the top 10. 2,000 passing yards, 470 rushing yards. Where do you think they've got Devin Dampier? If Sorsby is the highest-ranked Big 12 quarterback at 9, where do you think they have Devin Dampier?
I'm going to say 13, where the Utes are in the CFP.
He's at 19, right behind Sawyer Robertson, who Utah will face against Baylor.
Sawyer Robertson, who,
Saturday.
by the way, is he's putting up like 400 yards every game, it seems like.
He is very, very, very productive.
That's wild that he's that low on this list.
28 total touchdowns for Sawyer Robertson, 2,780 passing yards, which puts him, like, in just a pure yardage standpoint, it puts him up there in the top 5 in quarterbacks in the country. So Devin Dampier comes in at number 9. He's
19.
19. He's 19 up from 34. His total QBR is 83. He has 1,588 passing yards. He has 552 rush yards and 20 total touchdowns. And this is the point that you as a Utah fan love to see the most. Utah ranked 96th in offensive S&P Plus last season. But Devin Dampier and Jason Beck have them from 96 up to 19 this year. Dampier's second on the team in rushing yards. You already know that. There haven't been a ton of huge plays in the passing game, but he has been very efficient.
Do you think that's too low? About right?
That's about right.
Yeah, I think, especially you give the context of he was 34th in the preseason one that they did, preseason ranker they did. Like, yeah, I think that he's been. It seems like he's been good enough to move up about 15 spots, and maybe not much more than that.
There's a lot of people who are kind of like ambivalent when it comes to Devin Dampier. They're just like, oh yeah, because he doesn't have that big, sexy, like deep ball, drop it into a bucket multiple times a game.
Hold on, where's Bird Ficklin in the re-rank?
Don't do that. James is becoming a Bird Ficklin hater just because
come on now.
he's a Devin Dampier defender, and you're like, and I'm with you. Like the best thing for everyone when a starting quarterback is mildly hurt or is underperforming is the backup. And Bird Ficklin is exciting and amazing. Devin Dampier's a better football player right now, and he's going to remain that way as long as he's healthy.
Listen, Bird might end up having. He seems like in some ways he's got a higher upside. He may end up being the better player over a career, but he's not the better player right now.
Well, we're going to live in the moment right now, and Devin Dampier, I think, belongs here. Now, it gets a lot more interesting when you look at who has come in. We're 3/4 of the way through the season. Who has come in now on a list like this behind Devin Dampier, who you were like, hey, just be pretty good, Devin. Jalen Daniels, the Kansas quarterback. Baron Morton, Josh Hoover, Bear Bachmeier was not really in this conversation. How about this, though? Carson Beck, Avery Johnson, Cade Klubnik. These are guys who came into the season and you looked at it and said, they are going to be the big-time players in college football. Noah Fafita, John Mateer, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, your guy. Devin Dampier is playing better than they are. Arch Manning on this list is number 35. So whether you are all the way bought in on Devin Dampier or not, you have to acknowledge through the metrics ESPN's using here and through the results on the field that the guy is good. Is he great, transcendent, Alex Smith, number 1 overall draft pick? Not yet. All right, we're not there. But your team is in a really strong position with him as your starting quarterback. And your offense, more importantly, your offense is the number 2 offense in your league. When is the last time we got to say that about Utah football? I'll tell you the last time we got to say that about Utah football. It is 2021 when you won the Pac-12 championship.
I thought you were going to say it was when I was on the team in 04.
It's way back in my day. All right. We're way over time because that's how I roll. Trevor Riley is here in the studio, so we'll talk with him next. Log in on the YouTube because the rattlesnake is always fun to look at. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's number 1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We're lucky enough to welcome the most interesting man on the planet, Trevor Riley, back here in studio with us. He's been on the road. He's been doing his thing. He's been hustling and bustling. That's what he does. But now he's back here in Salt Lake City. Plenty to talk about with this Utah football team. Trevor Riley, how are you?
I'm great. I'm really happy to be here. I just got in. I flew in at 11:30. Made
nice.
it here on time, and I like seeing you. I told you off air. There's no way you didn't go to church as a kid. Okay? I like your character. I like your resume,
that's
man.
nice of you to say.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well,
And James is a holy man. I mean, James E. Faust over here. This is a holy man. Okay.
Is Peterson like it's a pseudonym? That's not your real name. That's your stage name.
He's James E. Faust.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So man, there's a lot to talk about with this Utah football team coming off a bye week. Getting a little bit healthier. We know all that stuff. That's great. Good to see. The more interesting thing right now is the way that Utah football is being perceived by this college football playoff committee and by the Big 12's perception in their eyes as well. Sitting now 2 weeks in a row at number 13. Now, it is a 12-team playoff, but because of the structure of this 12-team playoff, what Utah really needs is to be inside the top 10, whether as a runner-up in the Big 12 conference. Obviously, if you're the conference champion, you end up automatically in as potentially an at-large bid. They've got to climb. That's tantalizingly close, Trevor, 3 spots away from that magic 10 spot, and I wanted to know your thoughts on the matter.
I would say BYU and Texas Tech are definitely in the driver's seat in the conference, which has a huge implication on our final ranking.
Yes.
It's going to be hard for another Big 12 team to really make an at-large bid.
Sure.
So it doesn't mean it's impossible. I think it may happen. But we also got to battle Arizona State, who's trending upwards. And if they end the season with 2 losses, right, regardless of who gets into that play or that the Big 12 playoff or whatever, the championship game, there's a lot of heat there. And we beat them without their quarterback. Okay, everyone needs to remember that they're going to take an asterisk on that loss to Utah. I would say not a big one, but a small asterisk there, and it was early in the season.
Well, now their quarterback's out, so for them to finish strong, they're doing it with the guy that you beat.
That's fair. That's fair, and I should have maybe known that before I said that. Okay, I didn't even know that. But,
yeah. So Sims, I'm glad.
Sorry to waste everybody's time with that take. Okay,
no, don't do that. No,
I was just thinking about that as we beat them. Like, this isn't the same team I saw last year.
And look, Leavitt came back in, and Leavitt's the reason they beat Texas Tech. Leavitt is the reason that Arizona State beat Texas Tech.
Oh, 100%, dude. He killed them.
And then he gets hurt. And then Sims, who, look, let's be honest, against Utah, didn't look like much. Sims immediately, after Leavitt goes down, goes out and sets a Arizona State record with
he did.
290 rushing yards or something insane.
Yep.
They took the jersey. They literally took the jersey off him from the game, all grass stained and paint all over it and stuff like that, and they put it on a frame and they hung it in the Arizona State football complex that they show to the recruits. It's already in there.
That's incredible.
He had a great game. So
he's trending upwards.
He's being thought of a little bit differently.
Okay, so maybe the first game, filling in, that could be, save the take there a little bit. But I'm just saying there's a lot of action here that we don't – I don't even like talking about unless if BYU or Texas Tech loses. If I don't see either of them lose, every week, we're going to see this week. So everything's predicated upon those 2 teams. That's all, to qualify. It's going to be tough for us with 2 losses to slide in there without getting into that playoff or championship game.
See, this is where my crimson tinted glasses are affecting me here. I see a path that's almost as clear by not getting into the conference championship game because of what the committee has showed us, right?
That's fair.
Because if the committee had Utah at 16 or had Texas Tech after beating BYU at like 7 or 8 still, they put Texas Tech and they said, we like this Big 12 conference and we like BYU so much and we like your win over Utah so much that you are leapfrogging Oregon, the Oregon Ducks, who just came off a win against Iowa, a ranked team. We're going to leapfrog you over Oregon, and we're going to tell everyone in the country that you're better than Ole Miss as well, who's one of these like darlings in the SEC. So they said, Texas Tech, that's how much we love you right now. And Texas Tech's going to be in the conference championship game. They're
Who
not going to
do they have left on the season?
They have UCF and West Virginia.
So those are scrimmages, and Ole Miss has who? Ole Miss is going to have some heat down there, I think.
No, Ole Miss's schedule lays out really nice for them as well.
So that's good for us then.
They've got Citadel.
Have they played them?
Florida and Mississippi State to finish the year.
So those are Florida fired their coach in State. That's a tough place to play, but they just got beat by Bama, I think. And so they're going to be in a nice spot.
So Ole Miss is going to be in a really nice spot.
What about in the Big Ten? As far as the Big Ten goes, right? The team that is SC still have 2 losses? Are they still alive?
So USC is the interesting one here because USC plays Oregon.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So USC, number 17 right now, they're a 2-loss team. USC is a 2-loss team that has an opportunity against Oregon, who right now is a top 10 team. Also, USC this week has Iowa, who's still in the rankings.
And that's another thing. No one wants to play them, right? They may pull. They can beat anybody on any Saturday, it seems like.
So USC is at 17 right now, but let's say it goes exactly how USC wants it to go. They beat Iowa, who's number 21 in the country right now, according to the College Football Playoff Committee, and then they beat Oregon. USC is a team that you're like, ugh. So
they're in, dude. They're getting in, man.
What
they beat Oregon and Iowa.
What you want, if you're a Utah fan, is you want Iowa to beat USC and then USC to beat Oregon.
I mean, okay, so if they win those, though, are they in the Big Ten championship game? I assume they are, right?
No, because
They're
it's
still not.
Ohio State and Indiana.
So then, that's going to be tough, dude. That plays well. I mean, that's a lot of what ifs there. They got to beat 2 great teams, but there's a lot of action there, right?
100%. But now listen, let's play the whole thing out. We talked about this earlier in the show. So from the teams coming from behind you that can really ruin your day are Vanderbilt, who's right behind Utah right now, and behind BYU.
Love the quarterback.
Vanderbilt is one of the darling stories in the country right now.
We offered him at Jackson. Nobody wanted him at Anemi. Nobody. 3 years ago, man. Quarterback I'm talking about.
You offered Diego Pavia?
Yes. We almost had him on campus.
Wow.
Okay. We had him. Nobody wanted him. He was a Mexican kid who was out there playing JUCO ball, playing quarterback. He's a great story.
He's a great story. They've got Kentucky and then a ranked Tennessee team to finish the year. So there's the potential. If you don't look impressive, even if you win out, we're assuming that both BYU and Utah are going to win out, okay?
Yeah.
And if you're Utah, especially, Vanderbilt's right there behind you. A win over Tennessee is more impressive than any win you have the opportunity to get on the remainder of your roster. Miami still has NC State. Miami's at number 15. They're right behind Vandy right now. They've got NC State. They've got road game against Virginia Tech. That means nothing.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what happens with Pitt because Pitt's got Notre Dame this week. Right now they're 22. If Pitt can beat Notre Dame, then they're probably 18. And if Miami can beat Pitt or Pitt can beat Miami, now we're talking about another impressive resume builder.
And then Virginia, right? Virginia's going to, or they're slated to be the automatic qualifier out of that conference right now.
Virginia is they're
Duke
the and Virginia Tech. So look, the ACC is getting one team. The committee has told us conference champion from the ACC is getting in, and nobody else is. That's how I'm reading this because Miami, Georgia Tech, Virginia, Louisville, they're all kind of in the hunt still, as is Pittsburgh. But
do you want to know something? Is when you look at the offer sheet of players, go on 3 and look at the offer sheet, and you can see exactly what you're talking about. There's a group of offers, right, that end at about that point in the ACC. Then you don't get the other Power 4, but they group in with Nevada. I'm talking about Georgia Southern.
Sure.
That group of 5 things. So I could buy that. The ACC does not have a threatening team. Miami is trending downwards. Like they have not looked good the last 2 weeks. In Pittsburgh, nobody's seen them. I mean, not really.
So Georgia Tech, they're a 1-loss team, and that's interesting because Georgia Tech's got Boston College. They've got a ranked Pitt team.
Yep.
And then they've got Georgia. I don't think Haynes King, with all of his glory, is going to beat Georgia.
Was that last year or a couple years ago they beat them? When was that? They were close one time.
A couple years ago. So Georgia Tech is a 1-loss team with a win over Georgia at the end of the year.
Yeah,
that could be a big problem.
Yeah.
But again, if that's the case with Georgia Tech, they then have an ACC championship game. They probably get in as the automatic qualifier. I mean, if you lose the ACC champion, if you're Georgia Tech, you lose the ACC championship game after beating Georgia, you still have a pretty strong case as an at-large bid.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you lose both, you're probably not getting in, obviously, with 3 losses, I would assume.
So those are the teams behind you, I think, that can threaten you, and I put USC in that category. The teams in front of you that I think are going to get out of the way at some point are Texas and Oklahoma. And Texas is 10, Oklahoma's 11. Texas has 2 really, really tough games on the schedule. Texas is sitting here with Georgia on the road this week, and then Arkansas, and they finish at home against Texas A&M.
Oh, my gosh.
So Texas ain't winning. I think they're losing 2 of their final 3 is what I think. Now, if they win at either against A&M or at Georgia, now that really convolutes things because Georgia's not going to drop all the way out of the top 10, and Texas is going to those 2 teams will be ranked like 7 and 8 then, or 6 and 7 then, and that
would be something if they beat both those guys, man. If
Oklahoma,
Arch Manning goes and beats those guys,
that'd be wild. Oklahoma's got Alabama this week, Trevor.
Oh my good, and they're what, they ranked 3rd or 4th?
4th. Alabama's 4th, and that's in Tuscaloosa. So Oklahoma finishing out with Bama, Missouri, LSU doesn't feel like Oklahoma's going to be sitting above BYU and Utah when it's all said and done. There's
a lot of these like paramount games. Texas against Georgia. That's going to be a great game. But I would say if Texas beats them, just to go back to that A&M Texas game is going to be unbelievable. But A&M's probably already going to be slated into the SEC championship game, I assume.
They are the lone undefeated SEC team right now.
So wouldn't that be interesting if they sat some players? And now it got interesting because then Texas has an easier. I mean, not that they necessarily would, but I'm just saying if you're already slated, just like the old thing, why would you play in Week 17, right? If you're already got a bye or something.
Yeah.
I mean, so this whole thing, the whole landscape is interesting because so many dominoes have to fall, right? And this is why we love sports. I'm a little more pessimistic because I think there's an East Coast bias still when it comes to college football.
There absolutely is. When I walked in, we got that big giant TV right as you walk in here. It was Doug Feinbaum's ugly mug on the television, on ESPN, on SportsCenter. And the question scrolling along the bottom of the screen was, does the SEC deserve 6 teams in the playoff?
Yeah,
they're not
crazy,
asking that about the Big 12. They're not
it's almost
asking
like
that.
lobbying. They're lobbying through the television. That guy used to do local radios, maybe in Alabama. He's an SEC guy. It's how he's made his entire living. He's a brother of theirs. And to your point, it's propaganda. You hear it on the West Coast, and they don't watch the games. Like 8 o'clock kickoff. Are they watching that game? No. I used to live out there. I was falling asleep, guys, playing for the Jets, watching the Utes play. You fall asleep at halftime or a quarter in.
We know that's all the case. So there's all these convoluted scenarios that could play out. It's fun to talk about them, but at the end of the day, what Utah's got to do is they've got to go out there and they've got to win the games in front of them.
Yes.
Now, this Baylor team is one of the most prolific passing offenses that Utah's going to face all year. They've been good against the pass, the Utes have. Is there any danger in Waco, Texas, in your mind?
Absolutely. Dave Aranda is the second, or his top shelf coach, right? Second to none. He is a defensive mastermind, right? And when he has his best friend's Andy Ludwig. They vacation together. Okay, Andy is a very detail-oriented human being. And this is a very serious coach, all right? So serious that he's had to loosen it up a little bit. And I say this again, Baylor's a basketball school that's finding its way in football. And Aranda, he's deadly, okay? He used to be at LSU. He's won a lot of games, and he's very familiar with Coach Whittingham through the years. And so it's going to be, I look at it that way. Aranda's he cut his teeth on the West Coast. And so this is like going home for him, I think, or homecoming to him I guess.
Baylor, 313 yards a game through the air. They are a very potent passing offense. Now, in the run game, they're 12th in the Big 12 Conference at 141 yards a game. Utah, of course, is the number 1 passing defense in the league right now.
Yep.
They give up almost exactly half as many yards per game as Baylor passes for per game. So if something's got to give there, you would imagine that this is one of the key matchups in the the contest.
I think there's going to be a lot of NFL scouts there, or maybe there won't be, but they'll be watching the game, right? You get this matchup at receiver and corner. It's lining up, right? A passing offense. Our corners and safeties have played tremendous. Sands, the BYU or whatever game 5 had just a horrific game. He's had a bounce back and played fantastic the last couple of weeks. Okay.
Yes.
And so we've really responded. I think that the coordination's been it's been fantastic as usual. You hate to say as usual, OC, because it's been so awesome, right? We should give them more flowers. They should be getting more flowers. They're doing such a great job. And so I know to wrap it up, I think Baylor is a team that can beat anybody. When you can throw for that much power and you got a great coach who's defensive minded, and you're on the road. I mean, that's a tough game.
Now, I'll say this. The pass rush that Sorsby makes it really, really difficult to get to him because, A, he can run, B, he makes decisions very, very quickly. Utah's pass rush still found ways to kind of harass him and cause him problems. Didn't get sacks and get big numbers there. You didn't get him down the same way you did against Colorado the week before. Now, one of the dangers for Baylor in a game like this one is if you're going to butter your bread passing the ball, you got to be back there, and you got to be – there's multiple dropbacks in this game. Their offensive line has done a decent job, but they have given up 16 sacks so far on the year, and Utah right now is the second-best pass rush in the Big 12 Conference. I think that is also a matchup where, John Henry Daly, I think, had half a sack last game.
Yeah.
He's still top 10 in the country. He's at 9.5 sacks on the year.
How much is he going to go for next year? Okay. What's he worth?
A lot.
I'm serious. What do you think? Over, under $1 million?
Over.
So, okay, that's about what our quarterback makes. How are you going to pay him?
Well, the idea is if you have a successful program, and we're talking about a conference championship contending program, right? The hope is that some of this comes out of the woodwork.
You know what, OC, I'm with you on that. I'm all in on that take because I agree with you on that. Like, that's our only hope. We have to believe that.
Success begets success in every aspect of life, right? It's kind of like this great oxymoron that any of you have probably experienced if you've been on the job market. If you've been out of a job, you cannot find a job to save your life.
Yeah.
Whatever field you are in, and you're like, you get fired or your company goes under, you're just like, oh my gosh, I need a job so bad. And it takes months for you to find the next thing. Then you get into a job where you're in the job for a couple of years, and suddenly somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'd like to hire you over here instead. You're like, no, I got a job. I don't need this job offer now. Where were you 2 years ago when I was on the bread line? It's kind of like that, right? When you get these wins, suddenly people want to be associated with those wins. Companies want to be like, you know what? Look, everyone's talking about Utah football. Everyone's talking about BYU football.
Let me ask you this, okay? You're a former player. You're a fan. You're an analyst, a critic.
Sure.
What if we source the money like the Packers? Why not? We should source money. We could crowdsource it, but we need to find alternative routes. I'm saying there's all types of options, but really what you're talking about is as a collective unit, right? Where we talked about businesses. There's other ways too. If we can get hot here, we can get rallies and we can get sweeps. We can get stuff going to get the fans involved. I think when I see that stadium full every Saturday for how many years now? Is it 20 years of sellouts?
Something like that. 55,000.
We got enough juice where if we took $10 a month from half the people, right? That's going to pay a lot of bills, guys. $2.5 million. That's a lot. $250,000. If you can do things we might have to be a little more communal here as we get down. These bills are due now, OC, and I'm dragging on here because the bills are due January. Okay,
you're absolutely
and
right.
The more times we win and these guys play well, you just said it. Their value, and we gotta have a hard time keeping these guys.
There's the flip side of the coin, right? The flip side of the coin is that success that begets more team success. The same is true for these individuals, right? We saw it with Zach Williams. The kid didn't do anything yet in a game. He was given a couple of flowers by a man who is notoriously hard to impress, Kyle Whittingham.
Yep.
And highly respected as a talent evaluator around college football. Kyle Whittingham goes out 5 times and says, hey, he's done some really nice things. We like what he's doing. And suddenly, whoever's job it is at USC, at UCLA, at Oregon, whoever's job that is to pay attention to who might be available, their ears perk up and they say, wait, Kyle Whittingham likes this cat?
He's the godfather, dude.
And look, that's the double-edged sword. But you have to believe that there's some level of buy-in on, especially John Henry Daly is a great example of this, right? You were this guy, right?
100%, dude.
You were this guy.
I wanted to go to BYU. He went there. They didn't want him. They said, "Get out now. We don't want you."
You were exactly this guy, right?
Put that chip on. Come on, man.
A guy who, as a player, was a lot better than people gave it credit for right at first glance. That's exactly what you were. That's exactly what John Henry Daly is. And you end up in a spot where you're playing for and coached by guys that know exactly what it takes to get you to be the best version of you and allow you an opportunity to play on Sundays.
That's right, man.
Which,
you're right about that.
Like,
Don P's got his hands on me, and that was it. It changed my whole life, to your point.
There's a lot of guys around college football, a lot of coaches around college football who are good at developing. But if you're John Henry Daly, to be specific, and I don't want to put words into his mouth, but if you're John Henry Daly and somebody says, look, we want you to stay. You had a 12-sack year, all right? We want you to stay here. We want you to have a 15-sack year next year, and we want you to be a first-round draft pick.
Come on.
And he goes, well, yeah, USC wants the same thing from me. You say, all right, understood. Find me the last time USC brought a guy like you and turned him into a guy like that. The last time.
You want to tell you a story? My dad and I go to a high school game against Spanish Fork. This is in 2014. Okay. They had a great young man there who was playing center on the basketball team. His name was Porter Gustin. I went there unofficially on my own terms to see this kid. I know that he was the hot thing in town. The season the NFL was over. I was just ended my rookie year. And so I meet him in the parking lot. Okay. I introduce myself. Say, I come from a long line of defensive ends at the University of Utah. And I said, I know the SC looks good to you, right? Blah, blah, blah. The same thing you just said. Okay. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, well, I definitely think about it. We walked to my dad, said, he's gone. And so he said, he sees stars, dude. He sees stars.
Yes.
So whether it's stars and fame, right, it's now fortune. And so now it's just money talks. When you go to SC, OC, they have better facilities. They have better history. They have better TV deals. They have better, everything's more connected. So it's not a hard sell. USC, Utah, it's not hard. That's why they usually beat us on guys over the years. Right now, it's even easier. Hey, here's an extra $1 million. Drive down the road. We're not talking about SC. Back to BYU, south. I'm pointing the wrong way. Go ahead on 15. We'll give you an extra $500,000. Who's not going? You don't have to move out of your house, dude. A-Rod will pick you up on the way home, okay? He lives in Salt Lake, okay? Gary Anderson comes 3 times a week from Logan. He'll grab you in the truck.
A-Rod does live right here in the heart of Salt Lake City.
So, guys, look, we have to get serious about this as a whole Utah family, right? We have this coming in January now. We got some bills due now.
Trevor,
we
you're 100%
we got to fill it up.
I'm sure you saw the headline this week, and it kind of flies under the radar because football is actually being played. The Big Ten Conference is supposed to, this week, sign a deal where they give 10% of their everything, 10% of their rights, to private equity for $2.4 billion.
For in perpetuity?
No. For the
number of years.
For the extension of a grant of rights that adds 10 years to the grant of rights.
10 years, okay.
Okay. USC opposed, Michigan opposed. Everyone else in the conference said, yeah, give us the money, because it's $135 million that comes to every school.
Wow.
$135 million to do exactly what you're talking about, to write those checks. Now, because the Big Ten is the first one that's going to do this, I promise you every other conference in the country is going to do the same thing.
They have to.
We know behind
the
scenes.
It's an arms race now for cash.
We know behind the scenes that Utah has been exploring private equity as a potential situation. I don't know if you can do it on an individual level. I don't know if you can do it on like Notre Dame could as an independent.
But the trick is this. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will never do a private equity deal for their sports, ever. I heard it from the AD's mouth. Okay? He said it to me on Monday when Spence Checketts was there at the conference we were at. Okay? Mark Harlan was one of the speakers there.
Sure.
As was Dave Checketts, as was he. Forgive me, I forgot his name. In any ways.
Brian Santiago.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. Good-looking bald guy. From one bald guy to another good-looking dude. No homo. But anyways, I would like to see BYU model here, meaning we can keep it local. We can still get private. There's enough money, okay, where we can put an investment fund together. I did a thing for a cancer foundation when I was a rookie, the Sohn Foundation. Look that up. I didn't even know about them. I got drafted to the Jets. They found out my daughter had cancer, which, thanks you, nation, she had about 1 million prayers, and she's alive, so thank you. And they had a meeting once a year where they had an investor conference, and they donated the money to fund to beat childhood cancer. I've already seen this. They gave me the award for whatever, man. It was for my daughter, really. She was just a baby.
Yeah.
But the whole point of the meeting, right, was to raise the money, and they raised it, right? And then they had a strategies. How are we going to invest it so we can battle this cancer? And we can do that here at Utah, right? The church is already doing it. They just, they're doing it their own way. I mean, in BYU. Here at Utah, we could do that. We have to get, we don't want it, because where Dave Checketts was correct. Private equity, and you know this, OC, it brings sharks.
Mm-hmm.
And they cut up tradition, and they cut up red tape real quick to make money. Bain
That's
Capital.
all they care about.
Bain Capital. This is from guy from Bain Capital, out of the horse's mouth. Dave Checketts. He says, not good for business, private equity, in my opinion. He's running 2 soccer teams. He used to run the Knicks and RSL Soccer.
Yes.
And so when I hear that, I say, well, we if it's an arms race, then we have to have it, OC, right? Well, we need to get organized here locally and as a fan base, and we can do something that at least can mitigate us having to give up all that equity.
Well, to the point that you're making, right? If USC, who is opposed to the Big Ten's private equity deal, they finally they just get in line because they have to get in line if they want to be part of that party, which they do. They're like, all right, give me the $135 million, I guess. You have to. When you say you have to, like we've been saying, oh, you got to get better with money. Oh, you got to find different donors. We've been saying this for 5 years now. When the Big Ten schools get that influx of cash, it's not a philosophical you have to. It is an actual economic you have to, because of the thing that you're talking about.
You have to. It's an arms race, man.
Because if there's no kid, there's no parent, there's no coach, there's no anything that can overcome the weight of $1 million check for an 18 to 22-year-old.
Amen.
And by the way, I don't think it should, because you're not guaranteed an NFL career. You're not guaranteed
tomorrow.
Anything.
We're not guaranteed tomorrow, man.
That's correct.
And so that's the reality of what this business is now. It's no longer college football. It's minor league football. I just saw BYU get a commit from a G League player.
Yes.
Okay, this is minor league football, homie. No one can tell me otherwise.
We talked about that earlier.
No way.
BYU basketball is getting a G League center who's been in the G League.
Come on, man.
And he's going back.
So you're telling me you can go play in the practice squad for a year and come back? Yes. Yes, you can. That's coming next in the court, man. I know I'm not only making $600,000. I'm going back to LSU for 1.2.
Yeah. I mean, it's why Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback that you were just talking about, it's why he challenged in court to say, hey, I don't want my JUCO eligibility to count towards my college eligibility.
I got too many Benjamins on deck, dude. There's no way I can get
he's
that
looking
up,
at it and he's saying, like, I'm 5'10". I'm probably not going to get a ton of NFL opportunity here, and I'm making a couple $1 million to live in Nashville, Tennessee, which is one of the coolest towns on earth.
Dude, he's
and he's
killing
like,
it.
Extend my. I mean, you're right. The money.
His mom's on TV every week. His whole family. Right? He's got a whole brand coming.
His mom,
he's a Mexican in Nashville, killing it. All right, and he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. His family's wonderful. The whole story. These stories are wonderful because it's evolving now. You're seeing people. What this should have been in the original thing was you rise people out of poverty. Who the heck wants to smash their skull against people at OC? Just like who the hell wants to fight people?
I enjoyed it.
This is the bottom of the society usually. No offense to anybody who's been in these. We've all done it. But they, sometimes rich people dabble in this stuff, but not on a macro level, okay? It's mostly blue-collar people's children doing this stuff. And so if you can find a way to rise entire families up, man, and you're paying for it with your life, okay? We're going to end up having guys play so hard now for this money, OC, right? They're going to play so hard, dude, that the careers are going to get shortened. And if they don't, we're going to see, we have to find a way to make it. But the injury, like the bodies, the game is getting as tough as it's ever been, I would say. It's just like when you've watched UFC 1. Okay,
sure.
Versus UFC. George St. Pierre was the guy for me where when I saw him, he could do all the stuff. And now they all can do all the stuff, dude.
That's right.
And that's how it's getting now, is you're seeing quarterback play that's just like, holy crap, dude, these guys are just coming into league. Like Mac Jones, he was just on the scrap heap, man. And it's, I just throw him in there, he'll win 6 or 7 games. So it's becoming that, and he's not a great athlete either, guys. That's why I'm saying that this is a guy who's not a great athlete, and he's tearing up the NFL. It's scaling everywhere because there's so much money in it. And if you've been to Europe or you've been to South America, Mexico, where you see soccer, what this has become, OC, is it looks like European soccer model. We're gonna get to transfer fees soon. That's what's coming.
The club level of all that stuff is a more realistic model for how college football will move.
Not
forward.
The NFL, definitely European soccer, is how I see it. Do you agree with that?
I do, because the money is going to come in. It's going to start to. It's already coming in on high school kids. It's going to start to come in on middle school kids, like it does in those European soccer clubs. You get identified on the playground somewhere when you're 9 years old. They put you in a club system, and you come up through the academy, and then someday you're playing for Manchester United.
It's unbelievable, man. All you got to do is look at Messi, okay? A little short midget there is killing everybody for the 30 years. They grabbed him when he was 11 or something. They grabbed him early. And I've been talking. I had a meeting with Alcorn State's AD, okay, this offseason, and Terrell Buckley of Mississippi Valley State. We're talking about setting up a farm system. Okay, where places like that need some cash, right? You know what $200,000 would do down there, OC? Unbelievable stuff, right? If you could get that a year, you could start farming kids, right? Now you can start bringing kids from the South, bringing from the East Coast, and you create networks and almost like a co-op. It's a farm, right? You're developing players. And
Sure.
Real Salt Lake, I think, is related to a Real in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
No, it's just a name.
Okay, well, I was wrong then.
Yeah, they just stole the name
because
there was a lack of. There's a lack of imagination in the early MLS days, and they were like, let's just copycat.
Are any of these teams partnered? Okay, I see the same words. And if not, the NBA and used to have NBA or the NFL, excuse me, at NFL Europe.
Yeah.
And they have things going on now but it's moving towards where if you're college, you don't want kids to. And the reason why I say all that fluff, here's the reason why. Brass tacks is when you transfer, you don't want to lose credits, and that kills people. Okay, I saw a kid lose 2 years. He transferred from Jackson State. He lost 2 years of school.
Oh.
And so that whole thing has to get sorted out, right? We talk about the federal level. That's the thing about this thing is, OC, how are they going to handle academics now? Is this no longer an academic requirement that you even have to go to school?
Soon enough. I promise you that's going to happen. All right, we're way over time, so let's before I cut you loose, how does Baylor Utah play out? What's the final score? Does this end up being the dominant win that Utah needs it to be?
I think we win by. I've been wrong, a lot on the predictions. I'll just say this: I think we're going to win the game, and I think that we're going to run the ball for above our average. So I think it's going to be a status quo game for us, and the defense is going to play well. I'm always worried about special teams errors, big plays, trick plays. Those the game comes down to 5 or 6 plays a game. We got to win 2 or 3 of those, or not lose them at least. So I think we're going to be good. I think we should win.
Trevor Riley, it's always great picking his brain every time we get an opportunity to do so. He is one of the most interesting people on planet Earth, and he joins us every week here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Thanks for coming in, dude.
I'm sorry we went over, man. It was good stuff.
No. I'm the one who's in charge of keeping it on clock. I could have taken a break and we could have come back, but we were just rolling.
All right, man. I feel like I'm back home talking to my family when I see you, dude. Fellow Irishman.
Trevor Riley. Plenty left to get to. We got Between the Pipes with Adrian Denny coming in 15 minutes, our Mammoth Insider. Don't go anywhere. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700. We just had a nice long conversation with Trevor Riley. Guys got some thoughts, and a lot of them right now are centered on how does Utah maintain financial stability in the face of success, because it costs. You got to pay to play these days. You just do.
Yeah, Trevor's got that more for us, more of an off-season topic. He's got that rattler,
which
rattling around his brain all the time, because he's right. It is the most important thing.
You're 7 weeks away, like he said. The transfer portal opens in early January, right?
Yeah.
So you're 7 weeks away from actually having to cut those checks. You are 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away from the real serious tampering period. I'm going to call it the tampering period.
Should we call it legal tampering like the NFL does?
Where coaches are calling high school coaches, former, your uncle gets a phone call from Mississippi State or whatever, like, maybe hey, we really like
maybe
what
the
you
agent's their agent's brother is getting calls.
I mean, it is going to happen, right? So anticipating the off-season struggles while you're still in season, that's why you got to have guys like Trevor Riley, guys like Robert Blecken, right, who's a good friend of Trevor Riley's. He's dealing with that right now. He can't do much to help the team win on Saturday and next Saturday and next Saturday. His job, his duty right now is to help that team win as soon as the season's over, whenever that is. If that's conference championship weekend, if that's whatever bowl game, if that's the upcoming college football playoff like you hope it is, you've got to play defense by playing offense, play offense by playing defense. All of that stuff has to happen in this Utah football program, and Trevor Riley's got that front of mind because what has he been doing? He's a GM.
Yeah, he's a GM for a semi-pro / junior college type program, Utah Islanders.
Which, by the way, is a new entity. It's like in this world of college football that's changing, it has cropped up as like hey, instead of going a traditional path, we have this alternate route. The alternate routes are becoming primary routes.
Yeah.
I mean, you might see a situation in the near future where the preferred method for elite high school basketball players is to go G League, then back to college.
Which is absurd.
It's dumb.
It's absurd.
But
or high level overseas and then back to college. Like yeah.
Which is just it's all bananas. But the Daily Dump brought to you by Valley Plumbing. I want to make sure we touch on this because we haven't addressed it. I think that even though both games were losses for the University of Utah, I think that most of the fan base, and correct me if I'm wrong, has a certain affection for the Rose Bowl. The game itself, the setting of the Rose Bowl, some great memories from Utah playing UCLA down there, and obviously the Ohio State and then the Penn State matchups. The Ohio State matchup, even though it was a loss, I've said this on the air before, I'll say it again, was the single best college football game I have ever been to, I've ever attended in person. It's the craziest atmosphere, the coolest setting, the best memory, the best moments. It was like the ultimate college football viewing experience. The only thing that could have made it better is obviously Utah winning that football game. And I will die on the hill of saying that they should have won the football game, and they would have if just a couple different decisions were made. But the Rose Bowl is one of the cathedrals of college football. It is. You talk about the iconic settings, and it's really on the West Coast is like one of two or three. There's not many.
No, I would say the Coliseum not as good of a venue as the Rose Bowl, but the LA Coliseum is one of those handful. And
the Coliseum is because of its Olympic history, because of what USC has been able to do there.
It's not the same kind of scenery or setting like the Rose Bowl is.
It's not picturesque in the same way. It doesn't have
it's a cool venue though.
Deep connection to the lore of college football in the same way. But on the west of the Mississippi, what do you have?
I'm having a hard time thinking of more than those two.
It's like, I guess I really love Husky Stadium in Seattle.
Yeah, that's cool.
But
it doesn't have the history that those other two have, though.
Most people wouldn't say, you go talk to someone in like Chicago, Illinois, give me the most iconic college football stadiums in the land. They might mention the Rose Bowl. They're not going to mention Husky Stadium. They're probably not going to mention the LA Coliseum. And they're going to talk about the Big House. They're going to talk about Notre Dame Stadium. They're going to talk about Jordan Hare. They're going to talk about the swamp. They're going to talk about the shoe.
The Death Valley.
They're going to talk about all those things. And the Rose Bowl, UCLA is now in the process of exiting the Rose Bowl, of not having that be their home field. They're going to play at SoFi. The Rose Bowl has filed a restraining order against UCLA to try to prevent them from exiting their lease effectively.
Making them stay.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
The judges, everyone in the case has already been like, it's kind of like it's this desperate grasp by the Rose Bowl to try to keep UCLA there. And look, UCLA as a team and as a fan base, they've never really packed that place out. The Rose Bowl's iconic status is because of the Rose Bowl game more than UCLA football. But when you talk about the potential for a stadium to have one event per year at the stadium that is actual college football, what happens? A lot of money goes away, the potential for disrepair. I have been to Camping World Stadium, I think is what it's called, in Orlando. It's where they used to play the Pro Bowl.
Is that where they have the cocktail party, Georgia, Florida? No, that's Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's
not Jacksonville.
The one in Orlando is like
that's like just bowl game.
It was like UCF's field for a minute, and then they moved that. And so what it was, it's like this really cool, big, giant stadium.
It's just the Outback Bowl, right?
That has a bowl game, and it had the Pro Bowl after the Pro Bowl left from Hawaii. And I'm telling you, like, disuse is undefeated. It just is. Stuff doesn't get kept up. Stuff doesn't work as much. There's no money for maintenance. There's no effort or attention to detail.
Because why for one day a year? Why put that kind of investment into it? Time and otherwise.
The Rose Bowl will have concerts and things like that go there, I'm sure. But this is a tragedy at the Daily Dump. No college football being played at the Rose Bowl, save perhaps one day per year.
See, I'm not there with it. And maybe I'm just not a big enough college football fan to be thinking this way. Now, you make good points about the unintended consequences of not having college football games week in and week out there, the disrepair that could fall into. That's convincing enough to say, yeah, UCLA probably should stay. But I saw a bunch of UCLA fans on Twitter talking about this, like it's like, why move to SoFi? That's ridiculous. It's like, we'll show up to the UCLA games, and maybe they wouldn't feel like they need to leave. It's not a great venue for regular college football games, and UCLA fans have proven that over and over again. I think that SoFi can end up being a better home for them long term. I think the game itself is the only thing special about the Rose Bowl.
Can I tell you something? SoFi, for all of its glory, is a deeply sterile and impersonal place. It is
believe
the
that.
antithesis of what a college football stadium is supposed to be. There's zero character to it at all, and
part of that's because it's so new.
It's brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a gorgeous piece of architecture. It's a triumph of city planning and things like that, but it just does not have any of the stuff that a college football stadium is supposed to have, and it will never one time be filled by UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's a reason why you and coupled with what you talked about, these like, hey, you're gonna really risk the Rose Bowl falling into disrepair by not having enough games played there besides the Rose Bowl game. Coupled with that, like maybe that's a good enough reason for UCLA to keep their lease there. But I don't know, like I don't get that excited about hey, UCLA's playing at the Rose Bowl this week. Like I think that it's valid for them to be like, hey, why don't we look for a different home? And SoFi is, even though it is that NFL sterile environment, brand new NFL sterile environment, I mean, that if you're not going to play at the Rose Bowl, why not play there? And
UCLA, one of the big problems, UCLA is 39 minutes away from the Rose Bowl.
Is it farther to Inglewood?
UCLA is 29 minutes away from SoFi Stadium.
Yeah.
So for
a
10-minute bus ride 6 times a year, a 10-minute difference on your bus ride 6 times a year, you're moving away from it, not from Rice-Eccles Stadium, all respect to a wonderful building not War Memorial Stadium in Laramie, Wyoming. You're moving away from the bleeping Rose Bowl. And by the way, anything that UCLA athletics thinks is a good idea should be rejected out of hand, just as a rule, because they're not good at anything when it comes to making athletic decisions. They're not. They hire the wrong people. They fire the wrong people. They spend the wrong money. They do the wrong scandals. UCLA, anything that comes from them, they're the corrupted vine that bears corrupted fruit. I really think this is a bad idea. And I will say transparently, it's because of my affection for the lore of college football and the tradition of college football. Like, I think it's worth being preserved. I do.
Yeah,
they clearly don't.
I hope that they find a way to preserve it enough so that game is still, and that venue is still special for that game.
Yeah, like if you're not using the Rose Bowl anymore, that real estate is too valuable to just leave as a stadium that gets used every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the danger of this could be what happened to the Orange Bowl in Miami, right? They ended up tearing that, and for different reasons. They wanted to update whatever. They tear that historic stadium down, and now it's this sterile Hard Rock Stadium where University of Miami plays and where the Orange Bowl is played. It's not really the Orange Bowl.
There's a golf course literally right next to the Rose Bowl, right? You think that country club or that golf course doesn't want all the land that the parking lots and the stadium are on?
Absolutely, they'll take it.
They'll just be like, yeah, give me that. I mean, this is a disaster in college football. It is.
So you convinced me for other reasons why this is a bad move.
You're absolutely right that nobody's like, ooh, the Rose Bowl is hosting a UCLA versus Northwestern
and it's because
game.
UCLA and their fans don't care enough to make that special. Like,
and to be fair,
when Miami played at the Orange Bowl, it was special. We're playing at the Orange Bowl.
To be fair to everyone involved here, if you had to drive to LaVell Edwards Stadium to watch your Utes instead of driving to Rice-Eccles, you'd be like, geez, that's a haul.
The proximity was a huge problem.
Or even if you were like, I got to go to Zions Bank Stadium in Harriman to watch my Utes instead of going to Rice-Eccles, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Also, though, I got a great friend, former teammate, shout out Amin Shaheen. His family drives from St. George to Rice-Eccles Stadium to watch these games.
Yeah, I mean, like the passion is just not there enough from the UCLA fan base. And for a different fan base, my grandpa, lifelong BYU fan, but passed away a couple years ago now, or about a year ago now. He retired in St. George 10 or so years before he passed. And he kept his BYU season tickets when BYU was playing every home game at 8 o'clock, and he drove back home after the game. Like, not quite as far as Rice-Eccles for like your friend in St. George, but like he's driving home
drive.
In his 70s and 80s. He's driving home in the wee hours of the night on Sunday morning. Look, like, that's the passion we have here that they do not have at UCLA for football.
It sucks, and it like I don't know. I'm reading. There's an article from, I think this is a UCLA affiliated paper, that they're like, here's what you could do with it if UCLA is going to SoFi, because they are. USC could play a game there every year. Okay.
Maybe their rivalry game could be at the Rose Bowl.
Cal, San Diego State, Fresno State could play neutral site games there every year.
Sure.
Okay. It's just, I don't know, man.
You could like instead of just Allegiant Stadium being your kickoff venue
Here's
on the
thing.
west of the Mississippi, it could be Rose Bowl, I suppose.
I don't think USC cared at the time, but I also don't believe that USC thought that its move to the Big Ten Conference, like when they pulled the pin on that thing, I don't think they did so thinking we are now signing the death warrant to the Pac-12 Conference. I really don't believe they had that in their minds. UCLA exiting the Rose Bowl is exactly that for me. Them being like, you know what? We don't want to be here anymore. Their intention is not to kill the Rose Bowl, but the side effect, the outcome, I think probably ends up being killing the Rose Bowl.
Might kill the venue. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, idiots. I'm yelling at you, Martin Jarmond.
You kind of convinced me, OC. This is a terrible thing.
All right, we're giving away tickets at the end of this hour to the Friday Night Fights. Fierce Fighting Championship is at the Salt Lake City Masonic Temple on Friday night. First fight's going to be about 7 o'clock. So I've got a trivia question coming for you in, we'll call it 40 minutes. We'll give away a pair of tickets to the Fierce Fighting Championship night at the Salt Lake City Masonic Temple. All right, we're going to get back with Adrian Denny, our official Mammoth insider. Between the pipes next, can the Mammoth get off the slide that they're currently on against the Buffalo Sabres tonight at the Delta Center? We'll discuss that and more. The Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Between the Pipes with Adrian Denny, our Mammoth Insider, brought to you by Aladdin Industries, your Velux dealer. Adrian Denny, welcome. How are you?
What's up, OC? How's it going, man?
Yeah, no, good to see you.
Great to be back.
What's going on with the Mammoth? On a little bit of a slide right now.
What Andre Cherney told us yesterday when the team got back from Ottawa, he says, you know what? Sometimes the scoreboard isn't always as accurate as you think. He made the example of going into St. Louis and 4 shots went in the first period. You win the game 7-4, and then 2 days later you're in Minnesota. 3 shots in 5 minutes go in, and and then you go to Buffalo last week. You play your most dominating game of the year without question. It's scoreless going to the third period, and it goes to overtime, and you win it there. So, I think the things coming to a mean in terms of, when you're playing good, things are going your way, and one bad bounce when things aren't in your favor, never is gonna transpire the way that you'd like it to. So 9-7 off of that stretch of 8-9 on the road, where they went 5-4, which I was here on schedule release day, Sean, and I think if we would have looked at that 9-game stretch on schedule release day and said we're going 5-4, we take it, we cash out, and just fast forward to Delta
Sure.
Center tonight.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting the way that the goalposts move a little bit when you start to have success, right?
Yeah.
A fan base,
Expectations.
and expectations can change really rapidly because you're like, oh, this team's better than I thought they were.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not. Maybe they're exactly as good as we thought they were going to be, which is kind of like a playoff bubble team rather than that brief blessed period where like, oh, this is the best team in the NHL. They've got more points than anyone right now.
Yeah.
They're scoring more points than anyone right now. So yeah, the shifting of expectations. One thing that I think I admire about this franchise is knowing that they're like fully aware of their role in this community, in this emerging hockey community, is that they don't seem impatient with those irrational questions and expectations. It feels like they've taken on this role as educators with a lot of grace.
Yeah, and Bill Armstrong has said it within the last couple of weeks. Like, we have not deviated from our plan, and you've seen it. They took free agency from a very modest, responsible standpoint. There were some guys out there they could have gone out and taken big swings at, but they stuck with it. They went out and they got 3 guys at 3 modest prices that are going to come in and add to the team, and Brandon Tanev, Nate Schmidt, and Vitek Vanacek, the backup goalie, but never tried to rush, realizing, okay, playoffs this year doesn't mean Stanley Cup this year. When you make the playoffs, there's then that next box that you need to check, and that is, okay, experience it and let's win in the playoffs. And there's going to be more pain in terms of that, and in terms of this season, and with the team making the playoffs, that there's going to be more unexpected things that they learn from and grow from. But you look at the core of it, and I'd say we as a state in Utah, we look at losing 5 of 6 and being 9 and 7, like, what's going on. And I don't think the hockey world has deviated their thoughts and expectations of Utah in terms of being one of the funnest young teams to watch in the NHL that has made a move coming into this year.
Look, to support your point, one of the headlines right now online when you look up the Utah Mammoth is, are the Utah Mammoth really this good? Not what's wrong with the Utah Mammoth, why are they losing these games, why are they on a cold streak? The national perspective question is, are they actually this good? That's more of a question for the hockey insider than the recency bias of what's wrong with them right now.
Yeah, and there was an article in The Athletic on Friday from Chris Johnston that had some great stuff in it, and the headline is, "The Mammoth have arrived as an NHL playoff contender ahead of schedule with room to grow." And the last quote in that article was from GM Bill Armstrong saying, basically, yeah, that's the fun part of this, is we still have so much more room to grow. That the ceiling is is so high. And Sean, I think one thing with the NHL here in Utah and us watching it now every night of the week and focusing on a team for 82 games, I think maybe the biggest educational item for just the average person might be, you look at other sports and how often in other sports is there a favorite to win and that team goes out and wins easily, right? You look at football, you can look at basketball like that. And in hockey, it's just not like that. It's so competitive. And the NHL right now this year is competitive as I've ever seen. Like there's 4 teams in the playoff picture from the Western Conference right now that weren't in it last year. And I've never seen that before. It's usually the teams you expect to be there. And you've got Anaheim leading the Pacific Division, who just had a 7-game winning streak snapped. San Jose went winless in their first 6, and now they're above 500. Chicago was thought to be, one of the teams that was going to be in the hunt for the lottery again to win it. And you've got Utah. So the NHL so competitive. As we talked about this summer, there was one team going into free agency that was rebuilding, and that was Pittsburgh, and they are in a top 3 spot in their division right now. So everybody is good, and in the NHL and hockey, 75 to 80% of the games are tied or within a goal in the third period. So the question is, can you push through and win it, or are you, well, that was a good effort by us, we lost by a goal. And what we saw from the Mammoth during the 7-game winning streak was finding a way to take that close game and win it.
In the NFL, there's always similarities in sports, but there's also drastic differences in sports. And this year in the NFL is a good example of, I think, the phenomenon we're talking about where your expectations change because, the Kansas City Chiefs are not having, by their standard, a very impressive run. But if you look at the outlook, a look at the projection, and even Las Vegas will say, well, the best odds to make it to the Super Bowl from the AFC right now belong to the Kansas City Chiefs because there's this belief that franchise, that team is going to figure it out. And as the NHL is so insane right now, and there's all these contenders, are they real contenders? Are they pretenders? Are they paper tigers? In the case of someone like San Jose Sharks, are so young, stuff like that. You have to ask, I think, also, all right, there's a premium, there's a limited amount of playoff spots. Who is kind of waiting in the weeds right now, who we know is going to be a factor at some point this season? I mean, the Florida Panthers, I think, are the best example of this. They're not looking particularly impressive at the moment. They've got 17 points on the season. They're 5th in their own division. But I think most of us look at the Florida Panthers and say, no. That's something that you're going to have to worry about later on in the year. Is there anyone in the West like that?
Well, the Edmonton Oilers, who have gone to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, might be the worst October-November team in the history of the NHL. And this year they're 7-6-4, and they're above 500 because they played Columbus on Monday night, 2 nights after losing at home 9-1 to the Colorado Avalanche, as we dissect games that were 1-goal games in the third period in Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal, right? So they're down 4-2 to Columbus, and they're just sleepwalking through it. And all of a sudden, Connor McDavid makes a move, scores, it's 4-3. Edmonton takes a penalty, and you're like, all right, the way that they're playing hockey catches up to them, and they're finally not going to be able to tie this game 6-on-5 in the final minute with no goalie. And they scored shorthanded, and then Leon Draisaitl scored on a breakaway and won in overtime. So Edmonton always scares me. We saw it 2 weeks ago when Utah went in there. They're up 2-0, and all of a sudden, as you said, waiting in the weeds. McDavid, Draisaitl, or one of their support guys make something happen, and it wakes everybody up.
Zeroing in on tonight's matchup. Buffalo, last time out, obviously, you already mentioned this, got a win. And you played really well. You've got one of their, best players from last year who's now on your roster, and you're playing them on home ice. Home ice has been good to the Utah Mammoth in the early portion of this season. How do they get right in a home game against a Buffalo team that they have already proved they can beat?
So Buffalo's on a road trip. It's game 2 of a 4-game road trip. This is their trip, OC. Saturday, Carolina. Wednesday, Utah. Thursday, Colorado. Saturday, Detroit.
Fun.
So that's an itinerary that you just take out of a cookie cutter schedule and put there. So they haven't won on the road yet. They haven't won since they played Utah. They've got some injuries. Their best defenseman, Rasmus Dahlin, is back home in Sweden. His fiance has a medical circumstance right now that's really sad. So they lose him. So they've been struggling, but they were competitive. And in hockey, when you get good goaltending, you play hard, and you have a good game plan. That's why you see games that are tied, 1-goal games in the third period. And you know what? We got JJ Peterka from them, traded the summer in the NHL, got a star. But they got Josh Doan and Michael Kesselring, two guys that Utah really didn't want to give up, and two guys that Utah loved, built them up into NHL players who have gone into Buffalo, who's missed the playoffs for 14 straight years. And I don't want to say toxicity, but there was a storm cloud. Like, they started the year 0-3, and everybody's like, oh, Buffalo again, 15 straight years. And, we kind of been talking about it and can kind of see, like, Michael Kesselring and Josh Doan just went in there as, like, just a ray of sunshine with, positivity and leading by example and being really good players, number one. So you look at Buffalo and their injuries right now and not winning, but they've got that heart of Doan and Kesselring that we had here that we feel like has spurred their team. So Utah coming home, you always think, okay, being at home, that's going to be the answer. This is going to be easy. And sometimes you get home from a trip and you still have some more room to dig. So to me, this feels like a game that, again, is in the third period that Utah has to will their way to win it against Buffalo, even though they're only team in the Eastern Conference right now, a little under 500. So expecting a tough game. Buffalo wants to win this game 2-1. That's their plan to win this game, which is not how they play, which is not how they defend, which is not typically the goaltending that they get. So maybe that's something that says, okay, Utah can come in and put a 6 spot on them.
People who come on my show to talk about whatever probably get sick of me asking the same thing about the same people all the time. And I've decided that the guy I need to talk to you about every single time we have a Mammoth conversation is Dmitry Simashev. I feel like he is going to be, like, at some point, a top 5, maybe top 10 defenseman in the NHL. He's so young. He's got the size. He's got the talent. He's got everything. And, he's skating with some of the best in the business already to kind of model himself after. He's played 16 games. Right now, like, his plus minus isn't all that impressive or anything, but is he ahead of schedule or on the track that they thought he would be?
He's so ahead of schedule for I think what we all thought, from a broadcast team, from I believe that he was ticketed to start the year in the AHL. I really do. And we were talking to Mikhail Sergachev last week about him, and Mike Folta, our radio play-by-play announcer, says, I'm throwing Mike under the bus here really hard because I said the same stuff, but Mike says to Sergey, he's like, you surprised at all that, he made the team? And he's like, no, are you? And we're like, kind of, yeah. and it's kind of the story of Simashev's path. Like, when he was drafted 6th overall, all the experts were like, what is Bill Armstrong doing right here? What is the deal? And then they draft Daniil Boot, and the story of how he identified Simashev, with his scouts, is, there's going to be a movie made about it. Like, so they go in, he's from Russia. The Ukraine-Russia conflict had just started in 2022, and they found a way to watch him. And I can't remember if it was in Belarus or Kazakhstan, where they were able to kind of navigate their way to go see this kid for real. And New Jersey was the only other team that scouted him, and they obviously didn't have a spot where Bill Armstrong and the team did. And like they found this guy and identified him, and were sure as heck that he was going to be this type of player. But at 20 years old, I don't want to speak for Bill, but I was sure that he'd be in the AHL to start the season with Daniil Boot, and he's been about as consistent of a defenseman as you can be, and we haven't even seen the offensive part of his game other than that nice pass he made to Sergachev for the one-time bomb in Toronto on Wednesday night. Or was it Toronto, Montreal? Somewhere in Canada. A long road trip and didn't even go.
He's still listed at under 200 pounds at 6'4". I mean, so, like, his frame, he's a big framed guy, but he hasn't – I mean, he's 20 years old, like you said. He hasn't filled out the way that you expect someone eventually will, especially, you know, a professional athlete with nutritionist, lifting, all that stuff. Now, I know that in the NHL it's not emphasized the same way as in football, right? We know exactly with football guys, we know exactly how big they are. We know their body fat percentage, whatever, right? But the plan for a guy like this, how much weight do they want to put on Dmitry Simashev? Because obviously he's got the frame to hold it, but you want him to be nimble, flexible, etc. Skate backwards as well as he skates forwards, etc. So do we know what the plan is to fill out his physical profile?
I think he looks pretty close for me walking into the locker room and just taking a look at him, right? I would have never said under 200 pounds had I not known, right? He doesn't look. I'd say
realistically he's probably not.
Yeah,
but the listed weight is officially under 200.
I'd say he probably looks like 215. I think he's close to where you want him. I don't look at him like last year. Logan Cooley, you're looking at him and you're like, yeah, he's got room to grow into that. And then he shows up this summer and for training camp and he's medium. And we're like, yeah, Logan is filled in a bit. I don't see that with Simashev.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder what maybe we'll get Bill on and talk to him about if that is even a point of emphasis for someone like that, because you don't want to get overly focused on. I just saw Luka Doncic on the television. Like there was a lot of this conversation about his body last offseason and then coming into this season. It's like, yeah, that certainly matters. But also, if you get too obsessed with that, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
Like, are they effective? Can they play? And he can clearly play.
Yeah, as I look at Simashev compared to the other D, right, he's taller, right?
Sure.
So it's going to be different build from that. But I think, to me, he looks pretty close to an NHL body when you see him without pads on and just in the gym clothes.
Are the special teams this year markedly improved? Because that's something that Coach Bear and Bill Armstrong mentioned almost every time they had a real conversation in the opening season. It was, yeah, we got to get better at this. We got to make sure we train these right and we grow in this area. Still no shorthanded goals on the season. I know that, but are they improving on special teams?
Let's start with a penalty kill because that's the easiest thing to start with. Okay. Haven't allowed a power play goal in 6 straight games and have not gotten shorthanded more than twice in 6 straight games. And Bear talked about penalty kill this morning, and all looks pretty good on that. You got guys like Kevin Stenlund that can win that first face-off every single time, and you're off and running, and still missing Alexander Kerfoot, who's out doing the math, probably 4 to 6 weeks based on the timetable we got a couple weeks ago. Power play, OC, starts 1 for 16, goes 7 for 20, and now has a 6-game drought. So that's something that, it snapped out on the last homestand. So I think there's a lot of things Delta Center can cure, and starting with positive energy and being at home and getting back in the routine and having the facility at Southtown to go back to and from and train. You look at the power play, Clayton Keller, number one, has made an effort to really get the puck on net to shoot it when he has the shot. He's a pass-first guy. So that's one thing. But I think what we saw in that opening homestand, you get one power play goal, you're off and running. Just clicking. And it's on the power play, 2 quick passes, OC. 2 quick passes. The opposition is going to respond to the first one. Where's the second one going? So if the fans want to watch our power play, watch for that.
This is old news now, but we were talking about it before we came on air. The Jazz have announced they're going to build a practice facility at Southtown adjacent to the Mammoth practice facility that is already the talk of the league. First of all, Lauri Markkanen will be on skates at some point, and probably, much to the angst of Jazz fans, will be skating little pickup games with this Mammoth squad. Who on the Mammoth do you think is the best basketball player?
That's a good one. Because these guys love basketball. They got off of the plane at 6:15 on Monday, and at 7:00-ish, game starts against the T-Wolves, and the Jazz tweeted a picture that the Mammoth retweeted of Keller, Tanev, Peterka, and Hayton sitting front row.
Yeah, I saw that.
They went straight from the airport. They didn't go home. They went straight from the airport to the Jazz game. And Kel said that he loves to play basketball. Last year I would have said Kesselring and Doan. Best basketball player. Who do we have? I know it's radio, and I know we're limited time. I'm trying to think of this. Maybe the body, the athlete, like a big shocker here, but maybe like a Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther.
Yeah.
As far as
I can see it.
Projected ceiling, which we're doing a lot of, right?
Who has not ever picked up a basketball in their life on this team?
Do you think Simashev and Sergachev?
I bet Simashev and Sergachev have never dribbled a basketball.
Pamelka and Vanacek?
Well, I don't know. Simashev, I will bet Simashev has yet to shoot around a basketball in any measured capacity. Maybe on accident, but not on purpose. That's something we have to get on YouTube at some point.
That is very, very intriguing. I'm going to go back and do some homework on this and report back next week.
Will you?
Because you know what I did? Just you know how scouts are in pro sports? They just profile the guys.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, those two guys fit the profile.
Good athlete.
They got to be it. Yeah.
Yeah. He could be a shooter. I mean,
I could see Nick Schmaltz from Madison, Wisconsin, maybe having.
Oh yeah, Schmaltz probably was okay.
He's got 6 feet.
The reason I'm waxing so long about this question is because I'm always really fascinated about crossover athletics.
Yeah.
Right. And I've said this many times. I will reiterate it. I think that to be an elite level hockey player demands the most well-rounded athletic skill set of any sport. I think it demands the most. Now, it doesn't require the same level of specialization as if to be a great success in the NBA, you got to be 6'6" plus in most cases, right? In the NFL, you have to be an absolute mutant alien of a giant and fast person. But in the NHL, you could be normal sized. You can't be normal in order to be a great NHL player. To be able to move through space forward and backward like they do, to have the hand-eye coordination that they do, to have the VO2 max that they do, and actual physical toughness, no other sport requires all of those things of you, right? So I think you could make most of these NHL players into a decent point guard at least if you had to, but it's not. Every football player thinks they can play basketball. Every basketball player thinks that they can play football, probably. I don't know how that is in the NHL. I don't know what the NHL guys think they're also good at. Or if I wasn't an NHL player, I would have been this. I still don't know the answer to that question.
You see it and you bring it up because marketing, getting the skates on, lacing them up when the facility at Southtown, so that's happening. You know how athletes are.
Yeah.
They are in a spot and they see basketballs and basketball hoops, and it's like herding cats. They're gone, right?
Not me. I always when the basketballs roll out because I'm a bad basketball player. Wrestling was the winter sport, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a good wrestler, you're not a good basketball player. That's just you got to choose one or the other. I don't think you have to choose that way in hockey because you've got this the hand-eye coordination is there and all that stuff. So we'll find out. Hockey players might be able to hit a fastball. Basketball players and football players can't. Hockey players might be able to do it.
And they've got their summers. So it's all golf, all softball, and whatever else they see. Believe me, the herding cats thing is from experience. Guys, we're at a junior high school. We need to do an assembly. I need you over here. Could you put the basketballs down?
I just look forward to, and I know it's coming, the Utah Mammoth sweater in jazz purple. And the Jazz already did the City Edition jersey that is effectively the Mammoth colors, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. Love it all. Love what they've done with the branding, the mountain basketball and the mountain blue. It's pretty awesome.
Always love picking your brain, sir. Thanks for joining us in studio again.
Yeah, thanks for having me in. Appreciate it. Highlight of the Wednesday.
Adrian Denny, brought to you by Aladdin Industries, your Velux dealer, and Valley Plumbing for all your plumbing and drain cleaning needs. Look for the truck with a duck. Our Baskin-Robbins ice cream cake giveaway is back, ladies and gentlemen. Text us your score prediction for Utah versus Baylor, the closest to the actual final score at 877-353-0700. With the correct winning team, of course, wins an ice cream cake decorated and shaped to look exactly like a turkey. Have you seen these things? These are absolutely wonderful. It will be the delight of every guest at your Thanksgiving celebration. It is an ice cream cake that looks like a roasted turkey. 877-353-0700 with your score prediction for Utah versus Baylor. Closest with the correct winner and the correct score gets a Baskin-Robbins ice cream cake that looks like a turkey but tastes like an ice cream cake. Sean O'Connell Show continues on a Wednesday. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Coming in on the end of the Sean O'Connell Show, quick segment here, then we'll take another break and get to Crosstalk with Spence Checketts. Is Spence in studio today, James?
He is.
Great.
So we will have crosstalk with Spence Checketts.
Look forward to that. Little housekeeping here. Trevor Riley was in studio today, so you can go to the ESPN 700 Sports Utah YouTube page, and you can find his segment in here with me. You don't just have to look at my ugly mug all day.
Came in dressed like Men in Black with the leather.
He's wearing a leather jacket. He kept the aviators on while he was here.
He was looking awesome.
I just love that guy. He's just awesome. At ESPN700sports.com, you will find any of the conversations. Alex Jensen joined us right off the top of the show today. It was great to catch up with the head man for Utah basketball, Beth Lanier, as well. Had a good conversation with Trevor, and then Adrian Denny. All of that is available on the ESPN 700 app. If you have not already downloaded, you need to do so. People, by the way, just randomly text in every time Trevor comes in because they love hearing from him. So I hope he knows.
They really do. It's always like, oh, I love what he just said. We don't really get that very much on the text line with other guests. It's amazing.
So we just had a conversation about shifting expectations with the Utah Mammoth, and I just want to point out how it's so relevant to what's going on right now in the sporting landscape of the state of Utah, right? You came into the year thinking that the Utah Jazz were going to be miserable to watch, just awful. And that's the expectation that was set, and it's like, maybe I'll get me a $3 ice cream or whatever, and that'll be worth it. Now, the Jazz have been more fun than you thought. They're still going to be a terrible team, but they're going to be more fun to watch than we thought. So there's I guess, a glimmer of positivity in what was a barren of wasteland of basketball, right? And then the Utah Mammoth, we came in thinking, all right, this is going to be a borderline playoff team. So your excitement bar is set at a certain level, and then they started really, really strong. They surged through like the second week of the NHL season, and now they're coming back down to earth a little bit. And it's funny because it feels, even though they're on pace, it feels a little bit disappointing because your expectations changed. And nowhere is it more evident that expectations are everything for sports fans than with Utah football this year. 2 years ago, you had three-peat Pac-12 title hopes. Didn't work out that way. Last year, you were in a waking nightmare every week of the college football season, wondering where it went wrong, questioning everything. Has Kyle Whittingham lost the fastball? I asked on air for 2 weeks, is the culture of Utah football still intact? It is, right? We were like collectively almost in this
Ute-mageddon.
Ute-mageddon.
It
were in this
was
panic
November
mode.
last year.
What's happening? Right?
That was November of the college football season last year. That was a year ago.
And then this year, you came in with this kind of like cautious optimism that then turned into real optimism, I think largely because the outsiders, the neutral parties, were boosting what you thought might be the case. We're telling you, no, this Utah team is going to be really good. Expect a lot from them. They're going to have the best offensive line in the West. Expect a lot from Devin Dampier. Expect a lot from Lander Barton. And so you're like, okay, yes. I'm going to get excited. This is going to be fun. This is going to be cool. And you start the season strong, expectations through the roof. Texas Tech brings you back down to this low point, and then they build up again. They build up again because of how you responded to that loss. And then the BYU game, it guts you. And then expectations now are at this unreasonable place where we are going to be disappointed if Utah's not in the college football playoff. Expectations are everything. 2 weeks ago, when you lost to BYU, you were like, it's still going to be a good year, but it's not going to be a great year. And now, because the College Football Playoff Committee handed you a list that said, we actually think you're pretty dang good and something crazy could happen for you this year. Now, at least for me and a lot of the Utah fans that I have talked to and a lot of you listening, 877-353-0700, whenever you want to share your thoughts, expectations are all-time, way up here, do something the program has never done before. Isn't that fascinating?
It really is, because they probably won't win a conference championship if they do something, get to the college football playoff, which is the thing that this program has ever done before. They probably will do so without winning a conference championship.
That is the most likely path. Now, they could get into the conference championship game, and I actually think
BYU's got to be the one to lose to get them there, right? And Cincinnati, of course. Cincinnati needs one more loss, but before leading into last weekend, it was like Texas Tech losing gets us there. Now it's kind of shifted to BYU and Cincinnati.
That's right. Texas Tech is not going to. I think if you got it, I've asked plenty of people this question. If you could take another crack at Texas Tech, I think it's a 50-50 shot. If you get another crack at BYU, I think it's like 90-10 in Utah's favor.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that's you get that game again, Utah feels like they win that game. I am not as optimistic about Texas Tech as you are with that. If they play them again, I think that I agree with you and many of our guests who have said that's the team that Tech least wants to face in the conference championship game. But I think I'm not very confident that Utah can beat that Tech team unless maybe Baron Morton goes down. They get a key injury like that, then it changes things. But I don't know.
Part of the reason I say that I am optimistic, at least at a 50-50 level, is because if you play Baron Morton, you get to Baron Morton.
Yeah.
Will Hammond was a problem because he was so elusive.
That's true. Will
Hammond was better against Utah than Baron Morton was. He was a better matchup quarterback-wise than Morton.
That's a good point.
If it's Baron Morton, especially like a little bit hobbled Morton.
What was it, 13 points they gave up against Morton and 21 in a quarter against Hammond, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like if you get this like a little bit more stationary situation, and I don't know, it's probably unreasonable to expect or ask for either of those things. But that's what expectations do. I just thought I would point that out. With the Mammoth, we're just like, oh, man, they're in a slump now. No, they're exactly where they need to be. With the Jazz, we're just like, hey, this team doesn't suck as bad as – no, they do. They suck just as bad as we thought. They're just doing it in a little bit more appealing way. And with the Utah Utes football team, the roller coaster right now is like tick, 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 all the way to the top of that thing. You're going to go down this fun – precipitous drop, maybe a double loop-de-loop. Maybe you get the spin that makes your eyeballs sweat. And then who knows? Who knows?
Did you just see, gonna have tangent here, but NBA Today on ESPN's doing they do the top of the top, their top three, whatever they decide, topic of the day thing. It's two-handed poster dunks. Former Ute Tom Chambers, two-handed poster on Mark Jackson, knee to Mark Jackson's face from 89, makes it classic dunk, classic picture in NBA history for sure.
Honestly, like a pretty solid flying knee is the number one takeaway from me.
Yeah, anyway, we can move on for that, but I thought we'd shout that out.
Shaq. This one's mean.
When he pushes the Knicks center down.
I don't like that one. I love Shaq.
He throws the ball back at him.
You have no recourse. It's Shaq. He's 350 pounds of pure muscle, and he just junked you and then shoved you to the ground.
My favorite part is him throwing the ball at Shaq's back. Amazing.
All right. Got to take a quick one. We'll give away Fierce Fighting Championship tickets next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792.1 FM. The Drive is coming up next, but not before we give away a pair of tickets to the Fierce Fighting Championships at the Masonic Temple, the Salt Lake City Masonic Temple. 877-353-0700. Friday night fights. If you can answer this question. Utah Mammoth back in action tonight against the Buffalo Sabres. Of course, you acquired one of the Buffalo Sabres' best players in a trade, who he's now been an important part of what the Utah Mammoth have done. And this is actually a callback to a previous show that we did like probably 2 weeks ago. JJ Peterka, 877-353-0700. What does the JJ stand for? 877-353-0700. Spence Checketts in the Drive coming up next. He's here with me in studio, if you can believe it.
Hello,
Hi.
Sean.
How are you?
I'm good. Jesus Jones. Remember
Close.
that horrible 90s pop artist, Jesus
I
Jones?
actually don't.
He wrote that song Right Here, Right Now. It was, yeah. It was,
What a one-hit wonder.
yeah, it was played in like a bunch of different NBA venues for like a year and then faded to obscurity. I actually do not know what the JJ stands for in JJ Peterka. Good question.
I will tell you as soon as we get a correct answer here on the text line.
Excellent Ted Lasso segment as I was driving in, listening to you and James go back and forth. It is the hope that kills you. Do you think there's the expectation of the Ute fan base now to make the college football playoff? Like, do you know what a slim chance? Like, there's still a chance.
It's going to be at least mild disappointment.
Yeah.
I think that the realism will win over in the end,
Yeah,
but I think what's going to happen, this team is good.
they're very good. Yeah.
I think they're going to finish out. 2 out of these last 3 will probably be pretty dominant wins.
Mhm.
And you're going to be like, dang, this team is good. And they're going to be sitting at like 11, flirting with that top 10.
Yeah.
Hopefully Notre Dame, Texas, Oklahoma all lose. And then you're like, okay, now we belong. And let the committee debate it all and whatever, right? You're going to look at it as a Utah fan. You're going to say, this team is good. This culture is intact. This is like, we missed opportunities against Texas Tech and BYU that would have eliminated all this debate and eliminated all these tiebreakers. And you hope it works out like it did for you in 2022. Realistically, you can't expect that it's going to work out for you. But if it doesn't, you're still going to be like, oh, man. It's kind of like me every time I go to California, I buy a lottery ticket.
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, it's at $785 million.
Yep.
And I start planning how I'm going to spend the money. And then I don't actually win. Spoiler alert, I've never won the lottery.
Yeah. Very few people have.
And you're just like, oh, well, that's a little disappointing, even though I didn't really have real hope for it.
The biggest problem, let's do a segment on the lottery now. The biggest problem on the lottery, okay, for folks that don't know, it's actually set up for several thousand people to miss by like one number, right? And so what does that tell you? Like, oh, I was one number off. I need to drive back up to Idaho tonight to get the lottery ticket. Like, that is intentional for you to miss by 1 or 2 numbers, okay? They do that on purpose, and that's how they keep you coming back. We don't need to dissect the lottery anymore. But back to Utah football. I think Texas and Oklahoma are losing this week. I don't think Notre Dame will. They have Pitt. Game day's there. And Narducci was like, yeah, beat us 110-10. I don't care. We just need to win the next 2. It's like, no, if you lose 110-10, that's going to be a problem for you.
Yeah.
But I think Notre Dame is going to win. The scenario that the deviant in me is cheering for, which is just a small portion, Sean.
Which is just you.
It's no, come on. It's a small portion. You know, the Spence Checketts experience has several layers, okay?
Yeah.
But the deviant portion of my on-air persona, BYU wins out, Utah wins out, Tech smashes BYU again in the Big 12 championship game. Utah has 3 dominant wins. And then the committee has a real decision to make. Now, what they told us yesterday about the ACC is very interesting. Like, there's a small chance the ACC actually doesn't get a team in, because it's not just if you win a P4 championship you're in. It's the highest ranked, right?
Conference champion.
We see South Florida in the top 25. Now, is it likely the ACC gets shut out? No, it's not. their best chance might be Miami, who might not even play in the ACC championship game because Duke has this weird path to get there. There is a scenario in play that Utah does get in as an at-large to the CFP. There's a lot of things that have to happen. I don't see another loss on BYU's schedule. I think the best chance might be for Ute fans. The good news is you no longer have to cheer for BYU like you kind of had to last week. TCU this week might be the best chance because you and I have discussed this. BYU is built a lot like Utah. That's intentional. In a way, they've out-Utah'd Utah as of late. It was very easy to see that Cincinnati-Utah was a bad matchup for Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati-BYU is a horrible matchup for Cincinnati.
Terrible for the Bearcats.
Yeah, so I think BYU goes and handles their business. So then you get Cincinnati to 2. But I don't know that I see another loss on BYU's schedule. I think they get into the Big 12 championship game.
I think that's probably how it plays out, and I'm with you that a second loss to Texas Tech creates a really complicated discussion for the committee, but well, it's more complicated optics. I actually don't think the discussion is that complicated. I think that if you get invited to that room, I get invited to that room, you walk in, and this, by the way, would be true for the 2 BYU fans that listen to this show. This would be true if it was Utah, too. If Utah somehow made it to Arlington and got beat up again against Texas Tech, I would not make a case. Well, you made it to the conference championship game, so you deserve a spot. No, you now have had 2 bites at that same playoff team apple, and both times they've told you you're not good enough to be here. If that happens to Utah, they don't belong in the conference or in the college football playoff. If it happens to BYU, they get smacked again by Texas Tech. I don't think they belong in the college football playoff. I think that's an easier case for the committee than if, like, Cincinnati hasn't played Texas Tech in the regular season, right?
Correct, yeah.
Like if Cincinnati somehow makes it into the conference championship game and loses to Texas Tech in anything less than a blowout, then you're like, okay, so do we put this runner up in here?
Mm-hmm.
A team that has lost to Texas Tech twice, I think, doesn't belong in the conference or in the college football play.
I would tend to agree with that. It does come down to, like, part of me feels we hear a lot because we're local here about Utah maybe being undervalued, BYU being undervalued. Tech at 6 almost feels like they're a little bit undervalued. You know, if they can get to the top 4, that's a buy. And then it comes into play, like the brand bias, whether or not they're really trying to keep the door cracked for Notre Dame and Texas or whatever. Part of me tends to scoff at that. And then part of me understands this is a front-facing, revenue-generating entertainment business run by television executives who would very much like Notre Dame to be on their TV show. So can Notre Dame continue to stay clean? Like I said, I think Texas and Oklahoma are in for losses this weekend, which would allow both Utah and BYU potentially to jump them. And then ultimately, what does the chaos look like moving forward? But the best possibility for Utah continues to be an at-large. If you smoke your final 3 opponents, and I think there's a chance they do that, and then BYU goes back to the Big 12 championship game and gets their heads kicked in again by Tech. And then what we're left with is 2 teams with 2 losses, and the committee has told us the metrics they value favor Utah over BYU. Of course, BYU does have the head-to-head, and that's when it gets really, really dicey. And that's when it gets, the fever pitch here locally will be at an all-time high.
But for the committee, if we did get to that scenario, and there's so many permutations that could happen between now and then, BYU beating Utah will have been 6 weeks ago, which is an eternity in the committee's mind.
They tell us they're trying to figure out who you are today.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
It's a fun thing. It's why they put out these rankings. And even though we know that this one doesn't matter and last week didn't matter, I broke down every possible iteration of this that I could think of.
Mm-hmm.
John Jason Paterka.
Yes. Excellent acquisition for the Mammoth. They come back down to earth a little bit after that 7-game winning streak, but I still think we have a playoff hockey team in our market. It'll be fun.
Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thank you for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.